All right, everybody, a very good morning once again from the virtual flight deck. We are here for another flight live on Twitch with Captain Nabs. Good morning, Arizenia. Welcome to the stream. And I don't know why I'm getting an echo, but I think I know the reason why, so stand by one. How about that? That should fix that. Nope, unmuted again. Come on, honestly. All right, sorry about that. Welcome, everybody. As you can see, we're going to be doing another flight today in the PMDG 737. We've got it all loaded up right in front of us here. As always, we're trying to keep it as real as possible. Keeping it real should be my new tagline. Try to conduct ourselves in as realistic a fashion as possible when we are doing these flights. So, yeah, we are going to do this flight from Miami over to DFW today. That is our route for the day. KMIA to KDFW. I don't know why map's not loading. Oh, for some reason it's super zoomed in. That was weird. Don't know why, but I don't know why that's doing that as well. Being a pain. But yeah, that's our flight for the day. Miami to Dallas. So we're it's a decent slog, 2.5 hours, but we're gonna get underway in the next few minutes, and yeah, that'll conclude leg. I don't even know what leg this is. I think this is leg number 8 of this season of A Pilot's Life. And then after that, we just have a couple of turns. I think we have the Burbank turn, the St. Louis turn, and then we're done with the schedule. So it's been a very fun schedule. I've really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to starting A Pilot's Life Season 2. But Season 1 has been just really, really fun. I've really... I really like the schedule I came up with for this month. It took me quite a while to sort of really go through it over and over and over again to try and find a schedule that I liked, but I finally found a schedule that I liked, and we're gonna run with it. We're gonna finish this schedule out before we move on to the new software. So, yeah. For those of you that were paying attention there for the introduction, I hope you noticed my new streaming soon screen. I put together a bunch of screenshots. I really didn't put them together. Those are actually the screenshots that are my desktop. So I started just taking screenshots as I'm flying because this sim just looks so good. So crisp, so shiny, so just like you could reach out and touch things in it, that I've started taking a lot more screenshots than I ever did before, and I started actually using them as desktop. And I said, I wonder, can I actually use them in my stream? And you can actually set up a folder and have all those images in there and let it randomly scroll through them all. So I thought I'd share some of those beautiful pictures that I've been able to take in Microsoft Flight Simulator. All right, so we got a good 2.5 hour slog ahead of us today, so I don't want to take too long to get started here, so just have to get my mic out of the way here. There we go. And we'll get this underway. And of course, there we are. I'm going to put myself up here as well. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. All right, so hopping in the flight deck. Welcome into the PMDG 737. And we have got this airplane. It's sort of partially shut down here in Miami. It's powered up, but it's partially shut down. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that it is ready to go here. So we are going to need our IRSs. That's the biggest thing I noticed as soon as I got back in the flight deck. The IRSs are off. So basically, we've kind of simulated a long turn here in Miami. Chances are another crew brought the airplane in here, and we are taking it over to DFW. Alright, just a quick look around the flight deck. Everything is here that needs to be here. We will arm the emergency lights. We've got electrical power, and we do have air conditioning. How's the temperature doing in here? It's not too bad. 70 in the supply duct and 70 in the cabin. Good. It's not too hot. You will notice that modeling. Like if you just sit here with no air conditioning on, no APU on a hot day in Miami, it's going to get hot in the flight deck and in the cabin. So it's kind of... You need to think about that this time of year. You really need to think about the temperature in the cabin. How are you keeping it cool? Do you have an air cart? If I go to this view, we should have an air conditioning cart somewhere. It's right there in front of the engine itself, but there's our air conditioning cart, keeping the airplane cool until such time as we are able to fire up the APU. Now, before we do anything else, let's get some stuff going here. So we've got the emergency lights on, so we can go ahead and load up my self-loading cargo and tell them that we are ready to board. The target is to be airborne. No, I don't know why that it was there and then it's gone. There it is. The target is to be airborne, or at least off the gate. Why does it keep doing that? There we go. Off the gate by 20. in 20 minutes on the hour. We're looking for departure on the hour. So we got about 20 minutes to get this set up. We should be able to do this, especially if we start boarding now. And the other thing we need to start boarding as well as passengers is fuel. So the fuelers should automatically get, most airlines now, you don't even talk to the fuelers. The fuelers show up and they have a fuel order directly from your dispatch. You don't need to tell them how much fuel you need. If I can find the fueling truck, there it is. And today we are looking for 23,000 pounds of fuel. So we're going to go ahead and put 23 in there. Start. Fueler's already here. He's hooked up. He was just waiting for word from our dispatcher. And as soon as you do it, you can see the fuel load here is starting to go up in those tanks. So we can now worry about getting ourselves set up. And these are things that all in the airline industry would happen automatically. You wouldn't even have to talk to the cabin crew and tell them, yes, we are good for boarding. There's no defects on the airplane. The airplane is all powered up correctly. Emergency lights are on, everything. We are good to board. So usually you have to tell them that, but the fuelers show up and they just fuel automatically. They don't. You don't need to talk to them normally. All right, let's get set up here. We're gonna have lots of time to chat once we get going because we got 2.5 hours in cruise today. Well, at least 2.5 hours of flying time, so about an hour and a half in cruise. So let's go ahead and start getting this set up here. All right, so I'm going to bring over my SimBrief flight plan as always, and what I'm also going to do is I've got my trusty tablet over here, which has my FMC on it, so I'm going to be able to program my FMC without moving the SimBrief window out of the way. So let's go to the init ref page, and as you can see, the IRSs are not aligned, so we've got to go to page 2, grab a GPS coordinate, just click next to it, and set IRS position. So then we copy and paste that into the IRS position. Now it knows where we are. It's going to initialize properly. We are going today from KMIA, Miami, back to our home base for the time being of KDFW, Dallas Fort Worth, and flight number. I believe we're 415 today. It's always at the top of every page of your flight plan. Yes, American Airlines 415. Nope. Being a little slow here. There we go. All right, and let's have a quick little weather check here. So there's no ATC online right now, so we get to depart at our discretion from Miami. Winds are 260 at 3, so I guess it would be a west flow. And I honestly don't know which runway they pay for departure. Pardon me, I honestly do not. I'm going to go with 26 left for departure because it's a slightly closer one. And page 2. There's our flight plan route, so GLADS 2 departure. There it is, GLADS 2. Bags transition. And then, perfect, it's in there. 26 left, GLADS. Bags 2. And then we go direct to Remis. Yankee 280. To Redfin. Q105 to HRV. And direct Peanuts for the Barrie 1 arrival. Almost spelled it wrong there. Peanuts. And then we can do arrival, departure, arrival, Barrie 1, Peanuts transition. Let's see here. The estimate by SimBrief is we're landing south. Since we're coming from the east side, we wouldn't land on 18 right. We'd probably land on the east side of the field, so which is the 17. So I'm going to go with 17 left. It's a bit of a long taxi in, but we can change it once we get going. Alright, so now we've got execute and activate our flight plan, and now we can go to Perfinit quickly, and let's grab a ZFW. So plan ZFW according to the flight plan is 116.1. Reserves, now we go back to page 1 for pretty much everything else. So reserves, we're looking at, and I don't know if I pointed this out last time, but they added a new field to the here at the bottom of this page 1 here, FinRes plus alternate, which is your reserves. You don't have to mentally add it up anymore. You don't have to go up here and say 4.2 plus 2.2 is 6.4. It's there for you already. So I love the fact that it's now there for you. You can just do it without even trying. No effort required, not 6.7, 6.5. See, and even that was too much effort for me, apparently. Cost index of only 5. Our cruise altitude today of 38,000 feet. And our cruising wind on page 1 there, 354 at 10. Pretty light winds overall. No big headwind, no big tailwind, but at least no big headwind when we're going west, which is usually what we get. So better to have light winds than strong winds. We're going to grab some takeoff data. And Osidio and Phil Dowling, welcome aboard. 26 left last time. Perfect, thank you. All right, we're going to go with 26 left. No ATC to yell at me otherwise, so yeah, should be good to go. All right, so I'm going to pull up my takeoff calculator here that I've actually got on my phone, which I just find really handy because it gives me a good target takeoff power setting. Is what I'm looking for. So a target D rate. So if we do a flap 5 takeoff, which is probably most efficient here, temperature in Miami is 26. It's not too hot today. 3001. And our takeoff weight, and you always have to go back one page to find this here. Estimated to be 137. Actually, you know what I need to do? I need to put in planned fuel of 23. And that gives us a planned takeoff weight of 139,000. So if I put in 139,000, and if I try to do it with takeoff 2, can I do it? Nope, weight seems to be too high for takeoff 2. What if I was to change the flap to 15? Can I do it? Nope, still too high. Alright, so let's go back to flap 5, takeoff 1. So it's not a perfect optimizer because you have to specify which D rate level you want, but it gives you a temperature. So takeoff 1, 39 degrees should work for me. So takeoff 1, 39 degrees, and then I can either steal the speeds from my takeoff calculator or I could just use the calculated ones here. Flap 5, speeds would be 33, 34, 38, and our takeoff CFG 23.9 for today. And there we go. FMC is ready to go, and I think the fueling is done. Yes, the fueling's done. Perfect. So before I go do anything else, let's just go ahead and release that fuel truck so that we can make sure that he's out of the way when we're ready to go. And we can start setting up. Alright, there we go. How's if I press the right button sometimes? Let's get that yaw damper on. All the transfer switches are all centered and normal. No fuel transfer in progress. We can start the APU. How long have we got till departure here? We got 13 minutes. Target is 10. I would say it's close enough at this point. Alright, so we've got electrical panel. Not getting anything out of the APU generator yet? That's okay. Alright, let's go ahead and start the APU while we're down here. Don't need circuit breakers, normal cooling, and fueling is done, so we can go ahead and put the seatbelt sign on. Switch the ignition to the opposite channel from the last time we flew. Oh, we definitely gonna need some window heat on. No anti-ice required today in Miami at 26 degrees. Hydraulic panel is all set up. Cabin altitude is pretty much indicating sea level. Alright, so it looks like the cabin temperature is okay, 72 degrees. It's a pretty good temperature for the cabin. Got the APU coming up and running. Packs are in auto. Cruise altitude today is 38. DFW... Oh, I think it's about 650. I'm gonna have to recheck when we're on our way, but pressurization system is auto, and just then I saw the APU generator pop online, and I can also hear it now. You can hear the whoosh of air as the bleeds open up and the packs start running as well. So we can go ahead and signal to the guys outside. Yeah, you can take off the ground power and the air. So release the ground power and release the air. Don't close the door. Oh, for crying out loud. Well, fortunately, SimBrief has boarded everybody, so I guess it's fine. Just because I disconnected the ground power, it took the bridge away. But the door is still open, even though I heard the sound of it closing. Oh, Sim. Sometimes you just gotta really just close your eyes to some of this stuff that happens. Alright, yeah, we finished checking the pressurization system. The lights are all good. Yep, we can come down here and really quickly check. And what did I say? 3001 on the meter. 3001. There we go. Alright, 3001. There's one thing I'm very bad at when I leave the airplane. I always forget to turn off the flight directors. Cycle them back off and on. Speed. D2 is going to be 138. The heading is going to be 270 something here. We'll grab it a second. Oh no! Thank God it's only on the number 2. I hope they fix that soon. As soon as I look away over here up front, I won't see it anymore at least. If it's happening on number 1, I'd be very mad. Alright, 4900 set for now on the altitude. Testing the enunciators. Testing all of the enunciators. Alright, and we need our auto brake on RTO. Check the hydraulic quantity levels. Check the engine oil levels. 9097, it's not too bad. Alright, all the GPWO switches are guarded. Spoilers and flaps are up. Thrust levers are at idle. Parking brake is on. Stab trim's all normal. Fire detection test. There's the fault test. And test the cargo fire while we're at it. Alright, so let's get Unicom up here on the radio. And got some random squawk code on there. Let's go back to 2000 for now. And the transponder should be in standby right now. Alright, I think we're all set up. Continuing to support my future PMDG purchases. Not just PMDG too, now it's going to also probably be Fenix, Mad Dog, and a Honeycomb Bravo at some point, I hope. Yeah. But I appreciate the support. Really, I think it's the Honeycomb's going to make the most difference to my fun times in the future. These throttle quadrants, these old throttle quadrants are starting to get noticeably noisy. There's a lot of noise when I'm using them, but what can you do? Okay, I think we're just about ready for the briefing here. Yeah, let's just have a quick look. So there's no ATC online. Where's my... No ATC online, so I'm just going to pull up the charts here, and we're going to really quickly make sure we have the right heading in there and do a quick departure briefing here. Not DFW. I don't know why I selected DFW. KMIA. Charts list. Alright. So, no, not that one. This one. Get the runway heading off of here. It's 272. It is 272, and our SID today is the GLADS 2, and it's an RNAV SID, so I'm going to assume we probably need LNAV, but I'll arm it in a second once I have confirmed that. Alright, so we have no clearance today. We've got 2,000 on the squawk, and we're going to set the altitude in a second here. Today we are at gate Echo 4, right down here on the, just at the bottom of Pier E. So it's a long taxi around to 26 left. I'm going to basically plan to head out here, Victor, Whiskey, and November to get over to 26 left. It seems like the most plausible route. No runway crossings or hotspots anywhere along that particular taxi route, so that should be pretty easy. And then the SID itself today is the GLADS 2 RNAV departure. So this is page 10-3 Charlie, effective on the 19th of May of 2022. All runways accelerate to 250 knots if unable to advise ATC. So as soon as we can, usually once we clear 3,000 feet, we accelerate to 250 knots. And notes over here, radars required jet aircraft only. See additional requirements on the AAU page. So what the AAU page probably says, without having read it, is that for the RNAV takeoff clearances, it's usually RNAV to casino, clear for takeoff, runway 26 left. So, and then you have to read that back. You can actually find it on the SID, yeah, the AAUP attention all users page, AAUP, and it basically just says how to handle an RNAV SID when there's parallel RNAV SID departures. So you'll see the same page for Atlanta, DFW, and it is the takeoff clearance. RNAV to sea salt, runway 8 right, clear for takeoff, and the response by the flight crew is RNAV to sea salt, runway 8 right, clear for takeoff. So we read it back, and it's to confirm that you do have the correct first fix in there. You look down at the FMS and say, yeah, the first fix is correct. They wouldn't want you turning the wrong way when they've got simultaneous parallel departures off of these runways. So we'll pin that so we have that to reference. For runway 26 left specifically, climb on heading 272 to intercept course of 260 to Casino, then on track of 275 to cross Gator at 5,000. So we have our clearance already because no ATC gave us anything different. So 5,000 feet, and we intercept a course of 260 to Casino, and then on track of 275 to Gator at or above, to cross Gator at 5,000. It's not at or above, it is at 5,000. So we have to cross Gator at 5,000. You may notice a heading discrepancy there. This is 27, oh, it is 272. No, 275. Hold on, 26 left, climb on heading 272. Yeah. Intercept course 260 to Casino, and then on track 275. Yeah, so from Casino to Gator is 277. Generally, most FMCs, you are allowed a 3-degree tolerance. So depending on the exact magnetic model that's programmed into the FMC, the exact magnetic variations programmed in there, there may be slight variations from what's published on the chart. So generally, a 3-degree error on headings is allowed, especially if it's between specific points. So Casino and Gator. And then after Gator, we're going to go to Rutledge Glads. We're going to head off to the northwest to Marcy and Baggs. Perfect. So it's all in there. Terrain around Miami, 2,900 feet is the MSA if the engine fails. That's a safe altitude to climb to. Weather, it's a pretty nice day here in Miami. It's not even too hot, very light winds. It's a perfect day. Last time we were here, it was raining something fierce. That last approach was down to minimums, not today. I am still on V1. Still finishing off my last month of my last schedule on V1 before I move on to V2. Yeah. Terrain, weather, operational, no MELs in the aircraft. Everything is functional today as far as we know. The service-based failures are enabled, so if we get enough people, and if we get enough people watching, we will increase the random possibility of a failure as well. No TAMs really quickly. Anything exciting here in Miami, just make sure 26 left is not closed now that I've planned everything off of it. So yeah, Miami. Do you see anything for 26 left, either for the runways or for the SIDs? I don't see anything for 26 left, so it looks like we are good to go in the NOTAM department. All right, and noise abatement, nothing's published. We're just going to fly the SID as published, and immediate return. If we have to, we can come back and land at the runway here. It's generally a pretty long runway, so there's a gate frequency for pushback. We don't need a pushback today, but we can do the before start checklist, or the pre-flight checklist actually, and the before start checklist. So pre-flight checklist, oxygen, tested in 100%. Navigation, transfer, and display switches are all normal and auto. Pressurization mode selector is auto. Flight instruments, we've got heading 017 and altimeter 3001. Parking brake is set, and the engine start levers are at cutoff, so the pre-flight checklist is complete. Let me just make sure I've released everything. So our park brake's on. So the easiest thing to do is just go over here, go to ground services and take the chocks off. And this will make anybody else that might still be hanging out, like those baggage carts, leave. Down they go. Nobody's driving them, but they are going to leave. Hopefully. There they go. These are just the magical self-driving luggage carts. Where he went. Oh, there he goes. So he's going to get out of the way. One thing that PMDG does do pretty well is they kind of create a little interlock where you can't have multiple vehicles driving around on the same side of the airplane at the same time, so they don't drive through each other and clip each other. It's kind of a useful little feature sometimes. All right, while they're doing that, cockpit to ground.
Go ahead, flight tech.
We will be ready in a minute.
Roger.
All right, so that's going to bring the tug over, ready to push back. And yeah. We've got everything. The cabin is boarded. We just need our final takeoff numbers. So what we're going to do really quickly is go in here and say payload. And what is our actual payload today? So our actual ZFW that we get on our load sheet is 106.8, quite a bit less than the sim brief plan. 106.8, and our takeoff CFG of 23.8. We just got to reconfirm our speeds, 27, 28, and 34 now. 34 is set up top. LNAV and VNAV are armed because we are on the RNAV departure, and we are ready for pushback. Okay. Let's get this whole wagon train rolling here. I haven't done too much flying on the 737 lately, so I feel like a little bit out. No, we don't do that one yet. We do that after. So I feel a little bit out of sorts here, but I know we're not supposed to put the hydraulics on for pushback, but I need it to use the rudder. Something I have learned here. All right, packs off and beacon on and transponder on. Ugh. Stupid scroll wheel. And anti-ice, yeah, because we re-triggered the probes, that's fine. All right, before start checklist. Flight deck door is closed and locked. Fuel, we've got 23,000 pounds and the pumps are on. Passenger signs panel is on. Windows locked. MCP, we've got V2 134 heading 272, altitude 5,000. Takeoff speeds, V1 127, VR 128, B2 134. CDU pre-flight is complete. The rudder and aileron are free and 0. And taxi and takeoff briefing is complete. The anti-collision light is on. Before start checklist is complete. I'm just going to also do this because I always forget what the heck flight number we are. So I'm going to use this tool the way it was meant to be used. There we go. American 415. We are ready for pushback and engine start.
Roger. Release the parking brakes, please.
Brakes are released.
Pushing back.
It's a bit of a complicated corner in here, so kind of nice to have my own rudder control here.
You are clear behind, and you can start your engines at your discretion.
All right, starting engines 1 and 2 in sequence. Yep, she's starting. Here's 25, trying to do both things at the same time, but I find it's the only way to get a really good push right now. I look forward to GSX and having the mappable selectable pushback again. I always go the wrong way first. I always try to switch directions and instead I end up speeding up going backwards here. Alright, looks like we got a normal start on 1, starting engine 2. Stop, pushback.
Pushback complete. Set parking brakes, please.
Brakes are set.
Roger. Okay, the tow bar is disconnected and the equipment is clear. We will see you on the right-hand side with the pin.
You are clear to disconnect and go to hand signals.
Thanks. Have a good flight. See you later.
It's amazing how this SOP has been really etched into my brain now. I know how to really interact with the Pushback Express just without even thinking anymore. All that standardized phraseology has truly been etched into my brain. Alright, just waiting to see the good start. That's 56. There goes the starter again. The starter is closed. And the biggest thing you're looking for is that the EGT does peak and start to fall off to a stable value. So as long as the EGT is peaked, you know that the engine's still not accelerating and overheating. You can pretty much move on to the next step at that point. So let's go ahead and get the generators on. The APU is off bus. Get the probe heat on. Get my packs back on. Boy, I'm just feeling so out of it. I've been so busy at work. I haven't had a chance to fly very much lately. I really could use these detents on my flap lever there. Alright, and I believe we got everything there. Before taxi, actually no, I know what we're forgetting. What I always forget, flight control check. Elevators. Ailerons. And the rudder. Alright, now we can do the before taxi checklist. So generators are on. Go ahead and kill the APU while we're at it. Probe heat is on. Anti-ice is off. Its isolation valve is auto. Engine start switches continuous. Recall checked. Auto brake is RTO. Engine start levers idle detent. Flight controls are checked and the ground equipment is clear. Before taxi checklist is complete. Car can break off and away we go. Try not to give it too much gas since there's aircraft and probably manpower personnel maneuvering right behind us because we're kind of really tucked into this corner. So you always got to be really careful with the engine power whenever you're close to the gates, whenever you're in the apron areas. You never know who's behind you. You never know if there's vehicles driving around behind you, people working behind you. You got to be very kind of conscious of that. I see some pilots and they just, as soon as it's time to go, 45-50% power, and it's way too much. Just let the airplane ease off. Give the minimal amount of power you need to break away. Don't just give her 50% just to get her rolling, because that 50% is going to be very apparent to the people who might be behind you. So always try to kind of, in the apron areas especially, keep the thrust very close to idle if you can. If you're a heavy aircraft, or if you're heavily loaded that day, you may need some power, some breakaway power to kind of get you rolling, but just use the minimum amount you can get away with. Usually even just revving it up to 30% is enough to get rolling. But I see people and they just use like 45% just to sort of get rolling off the apron. It's like, if there's somebody behind you right now, they are not going to be impressed, to say the least. Alright, this is the taxi lane here as well, right? So yeah, we're going to take the one to the right here. Just got to go all the way around. I should probably make radio calls as well. Miami traffic. American 415 is at Concourse Echo, taxiing for departure, runway 26 left. Now is that somebody logged in, or is that static aircraft? I think that's a static aircraft. Alright, we do have the taxi light on, we do. Really? 10 viewers already? Oh. Alright, I believe you. Alright. Let me just get around the corner here. Alright. Maybe we'll have some fun today. Alright, so random failures are on. And what value should I set it to here? Should I set it to 5 events per 10 hours? That would probably give us 1 event on this flight at some point. And I am going to limit it to 1 event. So something might happen on this flight, but only one thing's going to happen. We're not going to have multiple unrelated failures. Any failures will be related to my inability to handle whatever happens. Here's a good question. Do I have my QRH handy? I don't think I do, or do I? Oh, I do. Okay, it's right there. Good. All right, let's see what happens. We did have 10. I believe you. Travis, you wouldn't lie to me. See, now that we're away from the apron, now we know for sure that there's nobody parked behind us. Sure, give it power, crank it up and accelerate down the straightaways. But I just, it blows me away when I see the kind of power settings that some people use in terminal ramp apron areas. And if you'll pardon the pun, but you're going to blow away the ramp guys if you use that much power all the time when your engines are aimed back at another gate. So you need to be conscious of that. It's so easy to be kind of focused on what's in front of you, what's up ahead. It's very easy to forget that you have an impact on what happens behind you as well, especially with the amount of thrust you can get out of these engines. Oh, that flashy PFD is annoying. It doesn't happen every time I boot up the sim, though. At least it's over the right side. I can deal with it over there. I can just... Of course, now that I said it, my mind can't help but want to look over there. Is it still flashing? Oh, yeah, it's still flashing. Alright, here comes November. I don't know if it actually is any guidance in the Boeing manual, but in our AOM, it actually does say max 10 knots for turns on dry pavement. 30 knots max on the straightaway, but 10 knots for turns. So I try to abide by that. Do we really need the lights on? It's daytime. Alright, then we just got to speed all the way down to the other end of the runway. At least we left the gate. Everyone's happy. As long as you're moving, people are happy. It's when you stop and nobody knows what's happening when people get a little upset. Travis would not lie to me. Phil, now you're just being a bit of a poop disturber, trying to make some trouble here. All right, well, I don't see too many people waiting for takeoff. There is a little bit of static aircraft around here, but I don't see any other VATSIMers, so let's go ahead and do... Alright, and one thing I did not do, and I'm realizing this as we're taxiing along here, is I didn't set the takeoff CFG 5.5. Because now the checklist is going to prompt me for that. Before takeoff checklist, flaps. Flaps 15. Was it flaps 15 or was it flaps 5? It was flaps 5, wasn't it? Oh. Wow. What am I doing today? Good thing we started the takeoff checklist before takeoff checklist early here. There it is, flaps 5, green light, and stabilizer trim, 5.5 units. Perfect. There's nobody else on VATSIM today. You guys are all watching me because you're probably all working. I will be back to work tomorrow. And that is really the crux of the reason why I was not here for... why I didn't do a stream for almost 2 straight weeks is work. I worked, let's see here, I worked 8 out of 9 days. And then I've just had, this is my 2nd day off. But before that, I worked 8 out of 9 days straight. It was just way too much work. And that is the general consensus. But we're going to talk about that once we get going here, because there's some interesting quotes I want to go find and read again. Yeah, there's a fair bit of static aircraft parked here in the American Technical Center here, the American Maintenance Hangars. I like it though, because it does add to the airport, and I do wish sometimes I did have more static aircraft flying around these airports. I wish there was more VATSIMers flying around these airports. That's what I would really like to see. But I guess not going to get that at 9:30 on a Friday morning. All right, all clear on the left and the right. Miami traffic. American 415 is entering runway 26 left for departure. GLADS 2 departure. It was GLADS 2. All right, and the auto throttle is armed. All right, 26 left. Here we go. Takeoff, check thrust. Miami traffic, American 415 rolling, runway 26 left. Checked.
Positive rate of climb.
Gear up. LNAV. VNAV speed.
Miami traffic, Bahamas Air 221, descending through 8,000 at Dala. I've entered a left, right downwind for ILS 09, Miami.
Miami traffic, American 415 is clear of runway 26 left, airborne on the Class 2 departure. Flaps 1. Flaps up. And there's the intercept to Casino. There's no ATC. We'll set our own altitude. 38,000 for our cruise. And we are still hand flying just for fun, because I haven't hand flown for a while. Although, generally when you're doing RNAV departures, they kind of frown on the hand flying, but... Should have an FO to set this altitude for me now. And there's the 5,000 foot level off. All right, now it's getting a little bit too much to do here at the same time, so. Autopilot's on. I'm gonna get the 38,000. Come on, wind up. 38,000 and for some reason I lost all my VNAV there. Not sure why I lost the VNAV, but anyways. So we're supposed to cross its Gator at 5,000, so we're supposed to maintain 5,000 till we get to Gator. I'm not sure why the VNAV clicked off there. Alright, so we're in FMC speed, LNAV, VNAV path. Away we go. Tim, you're a busy guy. You are a busy guy there, Tim. You're filling my chat channel. Thank you for that. You get me that much closer to my Honeycomb Bravo. I'm hoping another couple months. Little by little. Alright, while we're level here, we can do the after takeoff checklist. Alright, after takeoff checklist. Engine bleeds are on. Packs are auto. Landing gear is up and off, and flaps are up. No lights. The takeoff checklist is complete.
221, make a right base. ILS 09er, Miami.
Alright, hopefully we don't run into him. Literally as well as figuratively. Alright, 5,000 to Gator, 8.9 miles, and then we can climb again. In the meantime, we can enjoy this nice Florida scenery. Ooh, pretty. And hopefully something will fail. I'm going to bump it up just a little more. I do want to see something fail because I think it adds interest. Hopefully it'll be something a little more interesting than just like a pressurization fault or something. But anyways, okay. 8 failures per 10 hours. That pretty much is going to give us 1 failure. Statistically speaking, it's very likely to give us 1 failure between here and DFW. And then if I keep on seeing the number of people on this channel go up even more, then I will... I may increase that rate even more to try and get it to happen even sooner. But it adds so much interest when you actually have to think about what's happening. Most of the time in the real world, things go according to plan. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Most of the time, the airplanes don't fail in flight, but they do from time to time. Things happen. I've had some interesting stuff happen in the last little while. Noticed a chipped windscreen the one day while we're actually flying. It's funny because when you're sitting at the gate at an airport, the environment is usually so busy in front of you, so much stuff in front of you, that you don't so much notice what's on the windscreen. You don't notice all the bugs on the windscreen until you get to a point like this, where you get this nice kind of faded, hazy sky behind you, and then you start to be able to focus on all the little bugs on the windscreen. And I noticed that there was actually a scratch on the outside of the windscreen, so we had to talk about that when we got to our next airport. We did pull out the checklist and we didn't actually go through it, but we just sort of read through what is on the checklist for a compromised windscreen. There goes Gator. Here comes the power. We're going to resume our climb now to 38,000 feet. So we didn't actually do the checklist, but we did kind of read through it just to say, okay, well, if it does happen, if it does actually crack fully, then what are we going to do? It was a pretty small little chip, considering the depth and thickness of the windscreens. It was a pretty small little chip, but nevertheless, things to be conscious of. What else did happen to me recently? The one that set my blood pumping was we had an anti-ice leak, which is a warning light on our aircraft. So it's a pretty serious situation if you don't resolve it quickly. It doesn't take very long to go through the checklist. Basically tells you to turn off the anti-ice system, so it's not a long checklist. But anytime the red light goes off in an airplane, your blood starts pumping before you even have a chance to evaluate what's going on. You know it's something that is considered to be serious if it sets off a red light. In the 737, pretty much the only thing that sets off a red light is a fire warning of some kind. But with an anti-ice leak, you're kind of in the same boat. With the anti-ice system, if you're leaking hot air into the wing, hot bleed air that's several hundred degrees temperature, it can cause some damage pretty quickly, and possibly some severe catastrophic structural damage if it's not contained in a relatively quick fashion. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to, but it could potentially. So it's something you have to you have to respond in a timely fashion to anyways. Alright, there's 10,000. Alright, lights are off. It seems like a really nice day, so seatbelts off. Pressurization check. So let's see here. The differential's up to about 4.4, so it's definitely increasing. No problem there. Cabin altitude looks like it's starting to climb. Looks like it's hit about 1,000, and we are showing a climb rate of about 300 feet per minute. So the cabin is climbing. And last but not least, because I'm trying to keep this as professional as possible, guard on number 2. Hopefully with Tim watching, nobody will be doing anything stupid on guard, like making cat sounds. Because in the real world, it can be really excruciating to try and listen to that frequency when people are just goofing off on it. It's like, you guys want to be treated like professionals, act like professionals, don't goof off on the guard frequency. But easier said than done for some people. Alright, so we've already pretty much crossed Florida. Here comes the west coast of Florida. And I don't know if we're hitting this north or south of Naples. Where's Naples? Oh, there's Naples. Yeah, we're hitting this well south of Naples. So this is, yeah, down here it's really it's all kind of natural land. Like there's really very little development on the southwest edge of Florida here, south of Naples. So Naples is about 40 miles that way. That's where kind of the really built up west coast of Florida starts, but south of that, it's very swampy, so it's not easy land to develop. So it really has never been developed. It's still mostly pretty natural down here. There may be a few roads and you know, dirt roadways through here, but for the most part, it's a very natural landscape. Actually, I remember years ago I did went on an airboat ride through the Everglades. That was actually a lot of fun. Captain and I were back in when I was doing charter, and we were just in Naples for days, literally days. That's what made me think of it. We were in Naples for days, and so we're like, let's do something. Let's get out of the hotel. Let's go do something. So we found an ad for an airboat ride. So we drove into the middle of the Everglades, went on an airboat ride, and there's somewhere floating around. There's a picture of me holding a baby alligator. I don't even know where that picture went anymore. That picture is 17 years old. No, maybe 15 years old, but I don't even know where it is anymore. I don't know if it's I did have a digital copy of it somewhere, but I have not seen it in a long time. I don't know. It's probably been lost to some former hard drive that unfortunately is gone now. Alright, so there's transition set standard. Standard is set, cross-checked, and passing 183. Perfect. Alright, on our way. Crocodile naps. I love it. Alright, well, while we're waiting for stuff to fail, there's lots of interesting things to talk about that came up. Let me see if I can find the exact quote, because there's one thing I want to really talk about, because it really, the second I read this, yeah. So there was a news article that happened. It was about a week ago, anyways, and probably you guys saw this, but it really kind of got my back up because it really sort of it speaks to the absolutely wrong culture in an airline. Fortunately, it's not an airline I work for, so I can talk about it. But it was the CEO of WizzAir, which I believe is based in Hungary. It's based in Eastern Europe. I can't remember 100% what country it is, but yeah, the CEO was having basically a conference call with the staff of the company at large, because WizzAir, like almost every other airline in 2022, is just having a really tough time. They cannot seem to keep their schedules. They can't seem to make anything happen in a reasonable fashion, because it's just too many people are looking to travel too quickly. So here's the quote for what he told his staff. This was during like I think it was like during a video Zoom call to the entire company, but he said, "We cannot run this business when every fifth person of a base reports sickness because the person is fatigued. Sometimes it is required to take the extra mile. The damage is huge when we are canceling a flight. It's huge." Which it is a fair statement to say that yes, absolutely, canceling flights has a huge impact on people, but blaming your staff for calling in sick, when 20% of your staff is calling in sick at your company, that is not a sign that there's a problem with the staff. That's a sign that there's a problem with the company. Something is going wrong with the company. Either they're not motivating their staff very well, or they are working their staff so hard that that they feel compelled to take a day off, like every single week, like one day every week off, because they're just so completely exhausted. And I will 100% sympathize with this. In the summer of 2022, as far as it is right now, and we're only halfway through June, we are back to the worst of 2019 again, where the holiday season of 2019 was just a disaster, an absolute and total disaster for a lot of airlines, and people were just completely overworked. There was a pilot shortage going on that is now reared its ugly head again, and people were working way more days than they wanted to, spending way more time away from home than they wanted to. And we're back to that again. All the airlines are struggling desperately to try and hire people. And the trouble is that nobody wants to come and work for the wages that they're offering anymore. It's a problem throughout the industry. And not just the airline industry, every industry is having a problem attracting talent for the same wages they attracted talent at before the pandemic. People had a lot of time to sit around and say, what do I want to do with my life? Do I really want to work a minimum wage customer service job for the rest of my life, or do I want to find something better? And so many people went and said, I want something better for myself. And they took that time. They took some government subsidies during the pandemic, and they took that time to either improve their education or just apply an interview at other jobs. One of the biggest problems with low-wage jobs is they're often a trap. The second you get a low-wage job, you have to work a full 40-hour work week, and sometimes more than that, just to make ends meet. Sometimes you have to take on a second part-time job and end up working 60-hour weeks just to make ends meet when you're working minimum wage jobs. And so you never have time to go out and even think about preparing for an interview and going and interviewing somewhere else for another job. Usually the only time people move on from minimum wage job is when they get fired. So the fact that people had time to kind of really go through it and say, hey, what can I do now? What job can I take that I would enjoy? And they had time. They were off their minimum wage job, their minimum wage service jobs. They were able to go and take time and find something that they really enjoyed. And then when all these minimum wage service jobs open back up again, hey, we're hiring again, come work for us. Everyone's already said, no, I found something better to do with my time. So this is not a problem just with the airline industry, but it is really kind of rearing its head with the airline industry, because there's a crunch in the summer when everybody wants to travel, and this summer worse than ever. There's a crunch when everybody wants to travel, and there's not enough staff to handle that workload. WizzAir is suffering from that. Most airlines are suffering from that. They can't hire enough staff in almost any department. Ground staff, gate agents, pilots, flight attendants, everybody is hiring like mad, and it's a lot of these jobs they're not jobs you can learn instantly. Just because I hire 500 people tomorrow, if I have a huge job fair and I hire 500 people tomorrow, they're not going to be ready to work on Monday. They're going to take weeks and weeks and weeks of training. There's all sorts of stuff. They have to go get security clearances. It takes sometimes months and months to get security clearances now to go work by yourself. So until you get a security clearance, you've got to be escorted by somebody else. So you can learn on the job, but you can't really go and do your own thing without somebody standing there watching you until you get the full security clearance. And it takes months and months to get a full security clearance. So it really... Oh, did I not change my Twitch stream title? Thank you, Tim. You know what? I was doing so many things this morning. I probably did not change that, so... yeah, you're right. I see it now. Okay, hold on. Hilarious. What are we doing? We're doing KMIA to KDFW. There you go. Tim, you even get credit now in the new stream title. But yeah, the CEO of WizzAir immediately faced a huge backlash. You can't tell pilots, you can't really tell anyone, but you especially can't tell pilots who were also included on this call, you guys are just calling in fatigue too much. Stop calling in fatigued. If a pilot says, I am too fatigued to work, you have to take them at their word. The only person who can really make a fair evaluation of a pilot's fatigue level is the pilot themselves. You cannot say, well, you had 8 hours off or 10 hours off since your last duty, so you must be well rested. Yes, it is incumbent upon the pilot to try and do their best to get sufficient rest during that time off work and be well rested by the time they show up for work, but sometimes things happen outside of the pilot's control. You may suffer from insomnia. You may be at home, but maybe something happens in the middle of the night. The fire alarm goes off in your building, or you have a sick kid at home that wakes you up several times in the middle of the night to do something, or your kid breaks their arm and you have to take them to the emergency room, and you spend 8 or 10 hours there in the emergency room waiting to go see a doctor, and so you're not getting to bed on time. There's any number of reasons why you might be fatigued. And at the end of the day, just because you had time off work does not mean you're well rested when you come back to work. It should, and ideally that's the way we all want it to happen. It's not that people want to book off fatigue, but especially if you've been working a very grueling schedule, sometimes that minimum 8 hours sleep period is just not enough to really truly recover and reset your brain. Yes, you can sleep for 8 hours, but personally I need some unwind time before I can go to sleep. I need to just sit and even just watch some mind-numbing TV for 45 minutes to an hour just to sort of unwind my brain when I've been so worked up all day. And I've had a bunch of days like that lately where things have just not worked out well. And when I get home, I'm still not ready to sleep. I'm not ready to sleep for 8 hours as soon as I get home. So anyways, that whole WizzAir CEO speech was just a little mind-boggling, and you've got to be careful when you say this. People working in an airline, you know, a lot of them have safety rules, you know, not just the pilots, but mechanics need to be well rested to do their job properly, because you don't want a mechanic making a mistake on the job. Dispatchers as well. Dispatchers are, you know, they may not be actually flying the airplanes, but it's their job to kind of watch what's going on, pay attention, be alert to changing circumstances that may affect a flight. So there's lots of people in airlines that have very safety relevant jobs. Even a gate agent, like it's incumbent upon the gate agent to do their job well as well, to make sure that the we're not loading passengers incorrectly. The other day we had too many passengers on our flight, and we had to figure out who was the extra person on our flight. It took way too much time. And that's a potential security risk as well. Even, ground handlers, like, they've got to make sure that the airplane is loaded properly, that they don't forget to put up the cargo safety nets after they've loaded everything, that everything is properly secured. Aviation's a very safety-oriented culture, but you need people who are well-rested to be able to perform their jobs properly and not make stupid mistakes and forget things. If you are forcing people to come to work when they're tired and encouraging them to come to work when they're tired, they're going to make mistakes that are going to end up costing you. They're going to cost you, they're going to cost the company. If everyone in your company is that tired, it may be a sign that you are working too hard. That's 37 climbing 38. You either need to hire more people to do the job, or you need to reduce the workload. Because right now, it seems like the workloads are definitely unsustainable in the long term, and everyone is working so hard to try and catch up, and it's not fair to the employees who show up every day on time to ask them to do 125% of a normal day's work just because, well, we can't find anyone else to work, so you're just going to have to do it. I'd like to see those CEOs come down and throw bags for a day. I'd love to see them come and throw bags, and not for an 8-hour day, for a 12-hour day, like some of these guys are being asked to work. Oh, you can work a 12-hour day, right? It's fine. Yeah. Now we're discussing area codes. Is my rant really that boring? Hanging out in the 416 was kind of catchy. But yeah, the 905, the 807, 705, 647, 613, 519, 416. Wow. We have a lot of area codes in Ontario. I did not break my kid's arm. However, my neighbor's kid broke their arm a couple of weeks ago, so that's what made me think about it. But I just draw from reality. I mean, it actually happened to me it happened to the neighbor's kid a couple of weeks ago. He broke his arm, and they were in the hospital for a couple of hours at least. If that was your bedtime, and then you're still stuck in the hospital because you're not leaving once you're waiting there. I mean, there's any number of 1,000 things that can cut into your rest period. The one thing I will say in Canada that they did do in 2019, was it 2019, 2020? 2020, I think. Whenever they changed the duty rules, they did make one very important rule, and they changed it, and this is one of the best changes that they made, is that they changed the definition of a rest period and what is considered a valid rest period. And basically the rule for a valid rest period is that, especially if you're at a hotel, is you have to be 10 hours in the hotel. Basically what they say is key in hand, from the time you get your room key until the time you show up in the lobby to get back on the shuttle or the taxi or whatever to go back to the airport. Has to be minimum 10 hours. It used to be like they would give you 10 and a half or 11 hours from the time you got to the airport, from the time you set the brakes at the airport till the time you had to be back at the airport again. And depending on the ground transportation options, some places, that was just not enough. Especially if the shuttle is late, you're waiting for a hotel shuttle, it's on a 30-minute loop, and you walk out and it's gone. It just left. And now you got to wait 30 minutes for the next hotel shuttle. And that's cutting into your rest, but you're not resting while you're standing around waiting for a shuttle to show up. So one of the best things they did do with that last update to all the duty rules is they made it 10 hours key in hand. From the time you get handed a key in the hotel lobby until you come back is a minimum of 10 hours. So that gives you at least 8 hours to get some sleep. You've got 2 hours to get some food, personal hygiene, get changed, just relax and unwind a little bit, because it used, like, I had many times where by the time we got to the hotel, it was literally, well, we're supposed to be back downstairs in 8 hours from the time you get your key. It's like, well, how am I supposed to sleep for 8 hours and also, get changed and have a shower and shave and even eat something? So that was one of the good changes they made in the last few years, was they did change it to 10 hours in the hotel. So thank God for that, because especially the way things go sideways these days, and transportation options are not always great, especially if things change at the last minute. We had a last minute change where something got canceled at the last minute, was sent back to the hotel. Guess what? No transportation whatsoever. Oh, just go take the hotel shuttle whenever it shows up. Happened to me a few weeks ago, and it took almost an hour. There was no shuttle for our hotel, so it took almost an hour to arrange a limo from the time they said, okay, we're going to cancel you and send you to the hotel. It took an hour. So that's an hour of time that you're not really resting, because you're still standing around the airport waiting for something to happen, waiting to just sort of get out of the public eye and just be able to literally sit down. And sometimes it can take a while. I understand why it takes a while. It's that, companies are not waiting at the airport with their limos and their buses waiting for you to call and say, hey, we've got to cancel a crew. So it takes a while, but we shouldn't be legally counting that as a rest period if I'm standing around still waiting for a shuttle. Yeah, that's in management rest periods. Ain't no one got time for all these oddball area codes. You guys. Yeah, there are way too many area codes now. I don't even know them anymore. I know some of them. I don't even know all of them by any means anymore. It's funny though, because like sometimes you'll recognize an area code, you'll be like, that's not right. And I know that Montreal is the 514 now. And the reason I know that is because I've had taxi companies. I've been told to call this taxi company to get a ride. And I was like, this does not sound right. And I put in the phone number and I dial, and I look at my caller ID on the phone as I'm making my outgoing call, and it's like Saskatchewan. And I'm like, Montreal's not in Saskatchewan. Why am I calling a Saskatchewan area code to get a taxi in Montreal? Sometimes these systems are so effed up. It's not even funny. Took me a lot of phone calls to get them to fix that. Oh no, that's the right phone number. I'm like, it's a Saskatchewan phone number. How can I call a taxi company in Montreal from Saskatchewan? Oh no, that's the right phone number. No, it's not. You guys need to do your research. What else? Nothing failed yet. No yellow lights. Everything's still working. Still enabled. At some point something will fail. Yeah, what else happened? Speaking of fatigue, and I thought it was really an interesting and insightful kind of opinion piece, and I'm sure some of you probably saw this. FS Elite had an interesting little article about, and it was an editorial piece. It was not necessarily a factual article, but it was an opinion piece about flight sim fatigue, which it raised some very interesting points. We've come to this point in this hobby now where we have such a absolutely overwhelming variety of products available to us that it's hard to really kind of sometimes focus in on what we really like doing. I mean, you can if you really know what you want to do, but it's very easy to sort of get overwhelmed by the product selection that's available. And I was talking about this last stream. Send your thoughts in writing double-space to no reply at vatsim.net. I love it. Is that the official feedback channel? I'm gonna send some carefully worded letters to that address and see what happens. see if my opinions are taken seriously. Uh, I alluded to this, I'm pretty sure it was in my last stream, but Microsoft had published an update, and they had listed how many products have been published from Microsoft Flight Simulator, how many add-ons have been published that they were aware of for Microsoft Flight Simulator. It was something like 1,500 airports have been released from Microsoft Flight Simulator. So it's at least a couple hundred aircraft. Like, it's just impossible for any person to kind of keep up with this. Though, I mean, the nice thing is that that pretty much everyone probably can get their local airport or some nearby airport that they enjoy flying to, get like a really good downloaded version of it. They don't have to settle for the default scenery. They can pick an airplane that they like to fly and really kind of focus in on it. So I do enjoy the airliners. I do enjoy the complicated systems depth of them, trying to kind of complete that mission within the parameters specified. So I enjoy that aspect. But, you know, if you like bombing around down low doing VFR flying, there's a bunch of different VFR aircraft. You know, obviously the Cubs came with Microsoft Flight Simulator, but there's lots of good general aviation aircraft that you can get down low, float planes and everything. But the Twin Otter, you can fly nice and low over the deck with that. You know, there's kind of almost something for everything. It really is like such a nice wide community, but it is so easy to kind of fall for that. Ooh, I like that product. I like that product. I want that and that and that and that and that. And you end up with a hangar full of aircraft that you never get to fly. Yeah, Phil, exactly. My bank certainly can't keep up. Amen. I have kind of toned it back a little bit for the last little while. I mean, at the end of the day, this 737 didn't cost me a thing, so I really have kind of toned back to spending a little bit. Kind of, again, I'm saving my pennies now for a little bit of hardware that I think would probably be the most benefit to improving my simming. But we went from having kind of a shortage of especially, you know, hardcore airliners to all of a sudden here's a whole fistful of airliners all at once. Go nuts, have fun, and you really have to kind of focus on what do I really want to do. It's easy to go and buy them all, and if you have more than, you made an excellent point, if you have more than 6 or 8 or 10 airplanes in your hangar, you never become an expert at any one airplane. So you can either fly one airplane very regularly, or 1 or 2 or 3 airplanes very regularly, become experts at them, or you can be sort of just I can kind of get by, but not great with a whole multitude of 10 or 15 or 20 airplanes. I mean, how many airplanes have you bought and put in your hangar that you've touched once or twice and then you haven't touched in months? I think we've all gone down that road. Ditto for airports, and even the P3D era was becoming an issue. It was mostly becoming an issue because P3D was very, I won't say long in the tooth, but it had been around as a platform for a long time, so there was lots of good products out there. Microsoft Flight Simulator, it seems like in 2.5 years, we've got just an absolutely overwhelming variety of products available to us. That being said, I still think there's plenty of really good airports that are slowly coming. But, you know, I think very important hub airports that are missing. Top of my list, ones that come to mind right off the bat, are Minneapolis and Phoenix, 2 flight beam airports that were great in the P3D world, and they're really complicated, unique airports that need some good one-on-one developer time. But so many good, there's just such a wide variety of airports available out there. It's hard to even keep up with it. And that's one of the reasons why I do like Pilot's Life. Like, it kind of keeps me focused. These are my missions. These are the airports I'm going to. And I will even look around and see if there's a good freeware or payware version of these airports. And I'll consider buying them for a small number of airports. But, yeah, you just can't keep up with it. I did actually buy the Sky Park a while ago, and I never really used it. I never really got into it. I found that it was so similar to FS Economy, but less advanced. The interface was really slick, but I just felt like it lacked that sense of being part of a bigger world that FS Economy really has. Like, there's other people flying airplanes around. The airplanes are constantly moving around that system. You know, that really does have that massive multiplayer online feel to it, even though you don't necessarily see everyone individually, but you know that things are happening. Airplanes are moving, goods are moving around, people are earning money. I didn't feel that in the Sky Park, so I played with it for a little while, but I really never got into it. I really didn't find it was quite as compelling as FS Economy. But there's just so many add-ons out there. It's sometimes hard to know what you're gonna enjoy. I will say this: I'm gonna get my money's worth out of the 737. I didn't spend a thing, so I've already got my money's worth out of it. But I think even the Fenix 320, I will get my money's worth out of that. I'll fly that around a fair bit. I've flown that fly-by-wire, and I kind of tired. I won't say tired, but I feel like I've made the most out of like flying a 320 around. But I yeah, I want to make sure like I get enough enjoyment out of each of these airplanes that I feel like they're worth the investment. And ditto for airports. Like I hate buying an airport and only visiting it once. I feel obligated to go. If I spent the money on it, I want to visit it more than once. $20 to go and land, take off in an airport once is just a little bit wasteful. That being said, there are some utilities that are totally worth it. If I can get the FS2 crew add-on for the 737, I always think FS2 crew is very worth it. Having GSX, Pushback Express is I think is a really great add-on. Having GSX as an add-on would also be really nice. There's certain aspects of GSX that I miss. The marshalling, for one thing, being able to pick which gate I want to go to at an airport and having a marshaller waiting there for me. Oh, I miss that so much. It's as simple as that immersion was. It was such a great step up in the immersion. Right now, you're just parking yourself most of the time at the gate. So there are still a few things. I also feel like we could use a better camera add-on for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I feel like the camera system is not bad. There we go. The camera system is not bad in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but I definitely feel like it feels clunky still. I always found that a chase plane was such a fantastic tool, and the ability to kind of control it with sliders, control it very smoothly. I feel like this is still very kind of clunky as I'm trying to use the keyboard here to try and move this around, and kind of you can see every time I press the key, it's not nearly as smooth as it could be. So it's not terrible, but there's definitely, I feel like the camera system in Microsoft Flight Simulator could use some improvement. So maybe a third-party add-on would be good. Yeah, it's not intuitive. I'll grant you that 100%. Like one of the things I liked about Chase Plane was the fact that you had this these sliders on the screen, and you could just use the mouse to kind of and they would how much you move the slider was how fast the camera would move. So you can just move it a little bit if you just want the camera to slowly drift, or if you want to kind of quickly change direction, you could use the sliders a little faster. I just found it was definitely more intuitive, definitely more user friendly, and not as clunky. The system in Microsoft Flight Simulator, the camera system, is still very clunky. I think that's something where we could definitely see some good improvement. Is some good third-party camera control apps that allow us to save the views, but not only save them, but name them. That was another thing that was also useful, was you could have the list of named views, so you could remember which one. Like, I don't remember. I know there's a bunch of views programmed, and I'm pretty sure Control 1 is over here as the guidance panel, but like sometimes I have to scroll through like 3 or 4 different views to find the one that I want on the flight deck, because they're not labeled. It's just Control 1, Control 2, Control 3. If you only fly one airplane, chances are you probably committed those to your memory, but it's so much easier if you had the ability to click on them. And you could also save external views, like fixed ground views. You could save one near the runway. Yeah, Chase Plane had a lot of really, really clever features, and I don't think Chase Plane is coming to Microsoft Flight Simulator anytime soon, because those guys are really kind of focused on the Sky Park and want to work on the Sky Park. But I hope they bring it in soon. I think that we definitely need a what am I trying to say here? We definitely need an improved camera interface in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's clunky, it works, it gets the job done, but it's not nearly as good as it could be. And I think a third-party add-on would probably do better. Asobo's got so much to focus on right now. Speaking of Asobo and their focus, they just released their World Update 10, and most of you guys have probably downloaded this now. It's a return to America, so it's a whole bunch of new American airports and new American landmarks. The return to America kind of then asks the question, like, how long do these World Updates go on for? Because the other thing that I noticed the other day, when I ran that update for World Update 10, is how big this sim is getting, especially if you've installed multiple World Updates. The sim is starting to become a little bit out of control. I think my installation is now up to 1/4 TB for the simulator. Between all the World Updates that have been installed and everything else, I think it was over 250 gigabytes now, and that just blew my mind. It's like one simulation. It's like, holy moly, like you know, I mean, hard drive space is not necessarily super expensive these days anymore, but still, like, how much more can we continue to grow the sim? How many world updates are you going to push out there? You know, how much more space, you know, eventually we're going to have an entire one-for-one model of the entire planet stored on our hard drive, because that's how many world updates have been pushed to us. Like, it is, it's starting to get a little over the top how much space the sim is taking up, and I don't think that even includes the community folder. I think that was just a straight up, now I'm curious here, I'm going to go look at it here. But if I just go into the official, my official folder here, and just start counting it, look at those numbers fly. That's just the official folder. That doesn't even include any of my downloads. So the official folder says it's 170 gigabytes for all the official packages. And then if I do my community folder as well, which is just various things I've downloaded, and it's some of it payware, some of it freeware, again, it starts to add up really, really quickly. I've got my AIG models, I think, stored in there. Another 134. So between these two, so hold on, I've got 170 plus 134, so over 300 gigabytes given over to Microsoft Flight Simulator. Fortunately, I don't do a lot of other gaming, so I can give up that kind of space, but yeah, you start looking at this, and so you start to ask yourself, like, how long will this go on for? Like, is there going to be a world update like every 2 months in perpetuity for the next 10 years? Like, is Microsoft and Asobo really able to keep up that pace? And part of me says, like, from a practical kind of, you know, law of diminishing returns standpoint, no, they can't keep that up. But there's enough world out there to explore. I mean, there's been no Canada update. Come on, guys, bring on the Canada update. You know, they've only done like a handful of countries worldwide, and even then, like, you know, big country like America, they've only done an update that's covered, you know, like a handful of cities and airports. Like, you know, literally there's thousands upon thousands of opportunities for them to do world updates again and keep building on that world data. So they could theoretically do it. The other thing that kind of to me says that they are kind of committed to it for quite a while is the fact that they keep on bringing in third-party developers to help out. So I think Gaia Simulations has done a lot of the work on these third-party airports lately. I think Orbex has done some of the work on some of the landmarks and points of interest. So the fact that they're bringing third-party developers in tells me that they want this to keep going, but also at the same time, they don't have the resources within to really kind of give these updates the time and attention that they really would like them to have. So they're diverting the resources within Asobo elsewhere, and they're bringing on these outside developers to help with these official world updates, just to get some outside skill, probably people that might be more skilled than most of the people at Asobo because they've been doing it for longer, but skilled, very focused developers. But I also think it just says that they don't have enough resources in-house to do everything that they want to do, to keep up with everything. So they have to decide how they want to spend their time and their money. And that's why they keep on bringing on all these third-party developers to kind of develop official add-ons. Working Title is been brought on. The ATR is coming as an official add-on eventually. Oh, check it out. We got some Jack Center. Didn't even notice there's people logging on here. 3592. Didn't think we'd get in the ATC on a Friday morning, but I guess we are. Jacksonville Center, good morning. American 415, flight level 380.
American 415, Jacksonville Center, good morning, squawk 1050.
1050 coming up, American 415. We got the transponder on, right? Yeah, we did remember that. As silly as it is. You know what I never checked was to make sure this is on. Okay, good. The flight is tracking. Wouldn't that have been annoying if we got this far?
Blue Street 5299,
And the flight wasn't even tracking.
Blue Street 5299, Jacksonville Center, good morning. You climb maintain flight level 350.
Climb maintain flight level 350, Blue Street 5299.
American 415, radar contact, 10 miles north of the Cigar intersection. Welcome aboard.
American 415, thank you. All right, when we get
Jacksonville Center,
to our next fix here,
48465,
Remiss, in about 30 miles, we should
23,000.
definitely do a fuel check and a position check, time check, just to make sure we are
the Daytona altimeter 3005.
keeping up with what we need to keep
Altimeter
up with here.
3005, 48467.
What was I talking about before I got distracted by Jacksonville? We can't even be in Jacksonville all that much longer, can we? No, actually, no, we're just entering Jacksonville Center, so I didn't even notice they were online. They weren't online when we started, so we go through Jacksonville here for about, what is that, it's probably about 100, 150 miles. Okay, not too bad.
Jack Center, TBM.
See if anything fails here. Nothing's failed yet, I can tell.
No problem. Report back, please.
We'll go 851 Tango Bravo.
Just looking to see what's over there. Places to divert to, let me think. What's along this coast? I don't even know what's along this coast. So Tampa's behind us. I'm trying to put my professional hat on here. So let's see here. Fix, there it is. So let's say K TPA, just to give us an idea, because the other thing is you can't see what's behind you very well. So there you go. That gives you at least a little bit of a sense of there's Tampa back there. So we could definitely divert to Tampa pretty easily. Tallahassee might be a good next one. I think it's KTLH. And then, what's up next on the coast here? New Orleans? Mobile, I guess, would be a good one, too. Mobile, Alabama. Just trying to keep an eye on potential diversion points, especially if anything happens to fail on us here. There we go. Now we've got kind of a little bit of situation awareness of where some of these diversion points are. So Tampa behind us, Tallahassee off the right wing, and Mobile, Alabama up ahead. So if anything does happen, we can start looking there. MS for development and size. Yeah, yeah, exactly. How long can it go on for? Really, at the end of the day, how much more can they add on? Because I keep on wanting to add more add-ons, but I'm gonna need to buy a bigger hard drive one day. We'll buy a second hard drive and put it side by side with the other one, just to keep up with all these add-ons. Like it's crazy. It's a beautiful simulation. It's a beautiful world. And you know what?
2058 course journey at and maintain flight level 210.
It does kind of remind me of something else I read again fairly recently that was talking about. You know, so many video games these days, and developers are focused on making the biggest game possible. You know, oh, the open world is huge. It's 200 square kilometers of open world. You can explore it all, but if there's not much happening in that open world, what's really the point? Just making it a long way to get from point A to point B? Like, I'll say this, like the Grand Theft Auto games have almost always done an excellent job of sort of filling in the gaps with little detail, little Easter eggs for you to find. So exploring the world is fun. Like,
Number 48427, you can proceed direct the field.
You know, GTA 3 ended up being San Andreas ended up being a very big world, and even then there was stuff to explore in between. But GTA 4, they really scaled it back down, just being one city, Liberty City, with, you know, 3 kind of major sections, but really kind of scaled it down and worked on instead making the detail of all those individual buildings. You could see the individual buildings. You walk into dozens and dozens of different buildings, and you know, walk into people on the street, and there was little mini events that would happen. And that's something that Grand Theft Auto has always been very good about, is creating lots of like little mini events. Even you know, you take GTA 5 or Red Dead Redemption 2, and there's just tons of little events. Like, as you're just sort of wandering around the world, things happen just off the beaten path. If you go and explore a little bit, you'll find all sorts of really neat stuff hidden in there. But when you start to scale up these games, like you look at the size of GTA 5, like it took up two CD-ROMs. I don't even know the size of Red Dead Redemption 2, but there's a practical limit to how much detail you can really put in these games before it becomes almost too overwhelming. There's such a thing as too much in your game, where you can't even do it all. Or in order to try and fill the gaps, you end up creating kind of repetitive tasks throughout the game. So just to kind of fill in the space, you have the same kind of repetitive scenery, the same repetitive chance encounters with people along the way. So what game were they talking about? They were talking about Starfield, I think, was what sort of triggered the article in that case. They were presenting like a whole bunch of gameplay footage and talking about Starfield being such a huge game with thousands of planets to explore, but it's like when there's that many planets, like you almost become overwhelmed by the whole thing, and is each planet really done to a level of detail that you would like to see, that actually makes it worth actually exploring each planet? Or is it just, well, here's just a generic ball with a bunch of trees on it again, and here's another generic ball with a bunch of trees and a couple of resources on it? Is there anything really special about exploring any of these planets? Is each one unique, or is each one just simply a quickly procedurally generated ball of repetition? And I say that, and it's funny, it is ironic as I say that, and I'm sitting here flying in what is probably one of the biggest open worlds published to date. A one-for-one representation of planet Earth here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Like, this probably truly is one of the biggest open worlds that's ever been created. But I have to say that with Microsoft Flight Simulator, because they've taken the information from the real world, they've taken satellite information and they've procedurally, rendered it into the simulator. Everything is there. Literally anything that people have done, whether they've put they've junked a car in their backyard or junked a couple of cars in their backyard, it shows up on the satellite image, and it's probably been generated into the sim. Like, all that little detail level is there. So the whole world, all the things that people have done in the outside in this world are all out there to kind of be found. So there's tons and tons of Easter eggs that are just sort of hidden in the procedurally rendered satellite views. But as far as an actual interactive game, there's a limit to how big they can be. And I remember there was a big argument a long time ago over which game was better. Was Grand Theft Auto 4 or 5 actually the better game? And most game reviewers tended to say that GTA 4 was the better game because it was smaller. It was more compact. You could actually experience more of it. The trouble with GTA 5 was it was such a large map. It was very well detailed, but you spent so much time kind of driving from place to place and zooming past the detail that you rarely stopped to enjoy it. Whereas with GTA 4, it was small enough that you could actually walk from place to place for certain missions, or hop on the subway to walk from place to place, and you would then see and engage with the detail at a much more at a much closer level. I tend to agree with that. I didn't mind walking around the city in GTA 4. At GTA 4, it was small enough you could walk from place to place. Oh, there's the fuel tanks. It's not a failure. The fuel tank is empty. You could walk from place to place, and it felt like a real city. You felt like you were interacting with people, walking around people on the sidewalk.
Apex 412.
GTA 5, it's a fantastic interactive city, but it's so big that you end up zooming past so many of the Easter eggs because you're in a car moving so fast trying to get to your next mission. You almost never walk from place to place in Los Angeles or in Rockstar's iteration of Los Angeles.
Flight level 410, proceed to Charleston, Apex.
Come on, airplane, fail something. Wait. Huh. So, I see random failures has flicked itself off here. Why did it flip itself off? Active failures, none. Did I click a button there by mistake? Alright, I bumped it up because I don't know how long that was off for. Random failures, yes. 12 events per 10 hours. Limited events, yes. Limit to 1 event. Alright. I don't know what point that clicked off, but...
Number 694, Papa Bravo, contact Jacksonville approach 127.0. Good night.
Hard to imagine me thugging it up as a gangster GTA. I love GTA. I think it's not even the gangster.
Jacksonville approach 127.0.
At the end of the day, it was not the gangster aspect that I really enjoyed, but it was the open world. The fact that you can pretty much go in there and do anything. If you wanted to, you could just pull out a gun and just start shooting people on the side of the highway and, stealing cars and creating a giant pileup. get in the cops after you if you want to, or you can go walk through the world and explore it. I will say, like, GTA 5 did a great job with some of their mini games. Like, I have to say their golf game is really fun. I'm not a golfer. I'm not really a big golfer, but I enjoy sometimes. I would literally just turn on GTA 5 just to go and play golf at the golf course in GTA 5 because they made it a very entertaining game. And that's another thing they've done very well is like a lot of those little mini games within the game are so well done. I do enjoy the storylines. The storylines are usually very well written in all of the Rockstar games. A lot of emphasis is placed on making a very twisted and fun storyline. And it's you get so into the game. It's funny. It's one of those things where you forget where you came from when you're playing that game. You're like, wait a minute, why am I doing this mission again? Oh, right, because I'm working for this guy. But why am I working for this guy? Oh, because I met him when I was dealing with that guy. Like, it's such a kind of convoluted, twisted plot line sometimes that you forget everything that happened in your gangster life. Yeah. Do I even have it? I don't even have it installed on this computer. I mean, I had GTA 5 on my Xbox 360. That was where I had my GTA 5. I got my fix out of there. I have Red Dead Redemption on this. Not very gangsta per se, but still a fun game in and of itself. GTA 5 continues to play golf. I do. I enjoy playing the rest of it, but it's just a fun little golf simulation too. That it's such a great little mini game.
Delta 2898, turn left, proceed direct Amibi, cross Amibi at or above 3000, clear for the RNAV runway 36 left approach.
I left direct Maybe at or above, or at 3000 and clear for the RNAV 36 left, Delta 2898.
I was going to say, when is that next pump going off? But there it is. It's off now. Alright, now I'm going to keep looking at that to make sure random failures hasn't gone off, because I want something to fail, but I don't want to know when it's going to happen. I want it to be a surprise. Surprise me! Ah. But there's some good missions in GTA. Some of the heist missions are fantastic, and they're so well done. You see the little movie references sometimes within them, but the heist missions are so well done. I love the heist missions. Those are always fun.
TBM 851 Tango Bravo, Jacksonville approach now 127.0
or,
tonight.
I love taking the airplanes up and going flying in GTA, although the aerodynamics are not at all realistic with those airplanes, but still kind of fun to try to take the airplanes from place to place. Then just jump out and let it spiral off into the ocean while you parachute down. So many neat things you can do with that game. That's part of the fun of it is exploring and finding all the things they put in that game, because there's so much included in those games.
Just clarifying things. I was doing a right downwind arrival, correct? For 7 left.
48427, you can proceed direct to the field, enter a left base for runway 7 left.
Left base for 7 left, 48427.
Ah. Still waiting for something to happen. La la la. Waiting for something to happen today. What else did I see? Interesting that Microsoft Flight Simulator now is going to release a 40th anniversary edition. It's crazy to think that Microsoft Flight Simulator and its predecessors have been around for 40 years. And I have been involved with it for a good portion of that time. My first flight simulator was FS4. I remember years and years and years ago, and I told my dad when I was a kid, I'm like, I think a flight simulator would be kind of fun. Like, do you think we could get a flight simulator on our computer?
Delta 2058, leaving my airspace, Washington Center is closed.
And a few days later, he had FS4, and I started playing with that. And man, how simplistic the graphics were on that simulator, and still I enjoyed it so much. I had so much fun flying it. I got a whole bunch of add-on packs for that. I had the 747-400 add-on. I had, back then, there was only very, very limited airports and scenery available, so if you want the whole rest of North America, you had to buy separate scenery add-on discs. So I had a bunch of those add-on discs, and I'd fly different airline flights around. I had a Jetstream. And it strikes me that that FS4 kind of was in a lot of ways kind of in the same way as FSX. It was a very kind of long-lived version of Flight Simulator, or at least it certainly felt that way to me. That it was a long time between FS4 and FS5, which I think was FS95. Was FS5 or FS92? The Flight Simulator version 5, where they actually finally started adding textures to the aircraft and ground and the buildings. Before that, it was all just line art. FS4 was just simple line art. Runway was just a bunch of white lines painted on the ground, and you just try to land on it. But nevertheless, it seemed like FS4, because it was FS5 took such a long time to kind of come out, that FS4 was around for a very long time, and there was lots of add-ons for it. Not nearly the amount that we have available today, but there was a whole bunch of add-on aircraft, a lot of different add-on scenery you could add on. It seemed like it was one of the... It seemed like FSX, it lasted a very long time, and so a lot of add-ons came out during that period of time. I'm curious to know, guys, like, what was the first version of Flight Simulator that you guys flew?
And I am entering downwind.
I flew FS4, I flew FS95 and 98, and then I kind of fell off the FS world for a while there. I think I had Flight Sim 2000, and then I didn't kind of do anything else until for about 10, 12 years, and then I got into FSX again. But I still remember FS4, and that was a long time ago.
Ready for departure.
Number 78 Papa Whiskey, Jacksonville Center, good morning. Flight heading 360. The wind is 07 at 7, runway 7 right, clip takeoff.
We'll have a heading of 360.
Yeah, so let's see here. The original Flight Simulator was released in 1982, version 2 in 1984, then 3 in 88, and 4 in 89. So from 3 to 4 was very quick, and then 4 was out for a long time, and then the next one, FS5, was not until 1993. And that was the first to make use of textures. It really was. It was
516 Lima Delta, so you just took off from a controlled field and almost caused a collision in the air.
Stunned silence. Way to go.
November 516 Lima Delta, still learning, apologies. Would take flight following if offered.
516 Lima Delta, alright, just keep in mind if the airfield is controlled, you just have to call for clearance before you take off. Squawk 1024.
1024, will kill. November 516 Lima Delta.
48427, left base established for 7 left.
FS95 for Studio. Yeah, I remember FS95 and what a difference it was when there were textures added. It made the whole world look so much bigger. Oh, that's it. I know. I stopped talking at just the right moment to really feature that moment. Somebody clip that on Twitch and save that forever. Oh, that poor guy. I mean, we've all been there. We've all been new, so we've all made mistakes. Taken off, and we didn't realize an ATC had logged on at some point. I will argue that this case, the controller's been online for a good 20 or 30 minutes, and I've had that. Like, I've had people say, "Oh, I didn't see you'd logged on." I'm like, I've been here for 45 minutes. How did you not see me? Like, it's one thing if like you take off from an airport and the controller logged on 3 minutes ago. Okay, you didn't see him. You know, you're doing your takeoff and everything. It's fine. But I've had that where like 45 minutes to an hour. Oh, I didn't see you were online. Yeah, I've only been online for an hour. I don't know how much longer I can be online for to be noticed.
And Delta 2898, just confirming clear to land.
Delta 2898, firm. The wind variable at 5, runway 36 left, clear to land.
Clear to land 36 left, Delta 2898.
Jacksonville Center, Delta 1963 is with you, flight level 330.
I guess, yeah.
1963, Jacksonville Center, good morning, squawk 1067.
1067 for Delta 1963.
Jacksonville
Center, November 6-8, Papa Whiskey is heading.
Anyways, just sort of looking over the history. I just sort of reliving these glory days and remembering these screenshots from Microsoft Flight Simulator back in the day. And I remember, like FS4, you know, everything was still mostly fairly simplistic. And this was a high-end graphic for FS4. Most of it looked more like this, but it was a lot of line graphics. Roads were just lines, rivers were just stripes across the landscape. All your instruments were right down there, very simplistic. And then they moved up into FS5, and there's no real screenshots of FS5, but even like it was this level. The textures, they were still simple. There wasn't a whole lot of shading. Shadows were very basic, but I mean, at least textures were there. And then you moved on to Microsoft Flight Simulator, and it's just what a difference. You know, in 2020, comparing it to that original stuff.
1963 radar contact, 60 miles north.
And I've got to say, like, I'm still impressed with the frame rate that I can keep up on this computer.
1963, thanks. Jacksonville Center, November 6-8, Papa Whiskey.
My computer is definitely not the strongest computer in the world.
Papa Whiskey, Roger, you can proceed on course to the north.
Pardon me. My computer is definitely not the strongest computer in the world. The CPU is pretty good, but the GPU is definitely old now. I think it's approaching 10 years old. Like, I've had this graphics card for a while.
415, leaving my airspace.
I want to say
frequency change approved. Good night.
American 415 back over the intercom. Thank you very much for the service. Have a great day. Everyone's used to controlling at night, so everyone just says good night all the time.
2 arrival, or lead.
Oh, and I never did the fuel check. I said I was going to do it Remis because I just started talking again. But what was I saying? Yeah, the performance. Like, I'm pretty impressed. Like, I'm maintaining a solid 30 frames per second without any hesitation with the PMDG 737, and even in Miami, it was still keeping 28 to 30 frames per second. Even in Miami, and Miami is definitely a very detailed scenery. That scenery was the Latin VFR Miami scenery. It's a very intense scenery. There's a lot of detail. There's a lot of outside of the airport as well. They've done a lot of extra buildings like downtown Miami, and really kind of detailed downtown Miami, much more than the default. But it really does not play havoc with the frame rate. I'm very impressed with the ability, even with a PMDG product running, to keep a decent frame rate in this sim. It may not always look like that in the stream, but I've noticed that watching the stream, that sometimes it doesn't look like it's keeping 30 frames, and the codec that's encoding the stream is not as good as what I'm actually seeing on the monitor. But yeah, I'm nevertheless very impressed, because PMDG in combination with like big airports in P3D would definitely bring my computer down to close to single digits, if not into the single digits. I remember landing in Miami one time during Friday night ops in my PMDG 747, and it was like, I think I was doing like 7 frames per second down the runway, and it was just like trying to time the flare. It was just like, nope, there's going to be no flare on this. We're just going to fly it into the ground, because it was just absolutely grinding to a halt. Just way too many airplanes. But this sim does such a great job of optimizing the capabilities of your computer and running your computer reasonably close to the max without sacrificing performance if you've got a crazy complicated airplane. Waiting for something to fail. Nothing is going to fail. Oh, if something doesn't fail soon, I'll just ask you guys to trigger something. How long have we got now? So we are going to be landing in DFW at 15:53. So we got about an hour and a half here for something to happen. So we're just passing Mobile, Alabama. I think New Orleans is also coming up ahead. I think. Can we see? Can't quite see yet. Yeah, just faintly, very faintly in the distance, start to see some land coming up there. But I believe after Mobile, yeah, we're going to pass almost right over New Orleans here. Let me put it in here. But I believe it's somewhere right over there. KMSY, I think. Anyways, let's put it on here. Let's get another fix. We don't need Tampa anymore. That's fallen way too far behind us. We're never going back there. So KMSY. Not the best diversion airport, because there's only like 2 ILSs, but at least it's a place that's got a long runway. You can definitely divert there. You got services and airline personnel there. We're getting there. Blown bulb failure. You know, it's silly, but like, there's so many bulbs in this flight deck, they should actually simulate like the occasional light bulb failure and just test the light system. Oh, look. The light did not come on. Like, the gear light did not come on because the bulb is blown. Like, that's one thing that they don't actually simulate, is they don't actually simulate blown bulbs, but it happens. It happens in aircraft from time to time, and the more bulbs you have, especially because these are old-fashioned bulbs, like, these bulbs are tiny too. When you pry them out, these little tiny bulbs in all these indicators, they are really small, which means that they can overheat quite easily, and they probably will overheat at some point. I remember certain ones that went on and off a lot were prone to failure in the Dash 8. I think the Embraer, they use LEDs, so I don't think they're quite as prone to failure. I did end up having to replace a light fixture the other day in my house because we were cleaning and someone dropped something on the floor in the bathroom upstairs, and I guess the lampshade was just hanging on by a thread, so I heard the thing drop in the bathroom, and then I heard a smash. I'm like, oh, what fell in the bathroom? And I didn't realize that it was actually in the hallway underneath the bathroom that the light fixture, the lampshade fell right off and shattered into 1.5 million pieces. So had to go and replace that. I think the LEDs were still good for another couple of decades, but I had to replace the light fixture because the shade actually broke. I went around and make sure the rest of my lampshades were very secure. I'm not sure why that one was not. But for whatever reason, it was never clipped on there properly. All right, coming up to Nate here. All right, so let me get my flight plan here really quickly. We'll do a check here at Nate in our flight log here. All right, so we're passing Nate at 14:23. Do I not have the ability to mark up in this? No. If I loaded this into an actual PDF reader, I could actually mark it up. But all right, so 15.7 at 14:23. So let's have a quick look here. We actually have the takeoff time recorded in here. We should, I would think, but maybe not. We do not have the takeoff time actually recorded in here, so we can't actually measure. I should have noted our takeoff time, but I do like starting the timer. That's also a useful way to check your progress. But the biggest thing we can check is our fuel. So we have 14.3, sorry, no, we don't have 14.3, we have 15.7 on board after we passed Nate. So 15.7 at Nate, and we're supposed to have 14.5. So we are up over 1,000 pounds over what we're supposed to have at Nate. So we're burning quite a bit less fuel than planned, which is good. Which means we definitely will arrive at DFW with the right amount. It's showing 10.9, and we only need like 5 for reserve, so we definitely have enough fuel. So just a quick little fuel check there at Nate to make sure we've got lots of fuel. Not a problem. Maybe we can even speed up the cost index here, because we probably don't need to fly cost index 5. I mean, it's not bad actually. Cost index 5 is still Mach 7.6, so if we bump it up to 15. Mach 7.7. What if we were to do like a standard cost index of 25? Mach 7.8. Yeah, sure, why not? Bump it up a little bit. Here comes New Orleans. You can start to see the Mississippi River there. Nice, we're going to fly almost right over it. What else can we talk about? My coffee's already empty. Why is there an FMC message? Oh, unable 290 knots at Muzzy. Yeah, that's fine. And the only reason why you usually get this message is because your planned descent speed is less than the speed limit. So our target speed in descent is 779.78.267. So we can't. The one thing that the Boeing FMC, I'm not sure if the Airbus FMC does the same thing, but the Boeing FMC will not accelerate to meet a speed restriction. It will decelerate, but it will not accelerate. So because there is a published speed restriction of 290 knots on this arrival, it's basically yelling at me and saying, I'm not going to fly this at 290 knots because I don't want to descend any faster than 267. So it's telling me that I'm not going to make those speed restrictions based on its descent profile. I don't know why it couldn't just speed up, but it won't. The way it's programmed in, it will not speed up any higher than the planned economy speed. Yeah, we're gonna fly right over New Orleans. This should be a good view of New Orleans here. I don't know why it likes to be crooked when I always go into the drone view here, but it likes to be crooked. itself away for a minute. Just play with the external views here a little bit. I just love the detail level of the sim. Like, I never used to screenshot the previous sims, but I find myself taking screenshots all the time in the simulator now because it's just such a detailed sim. The lighting looks so good. The models look so good. You have to get really close before you really start to see the models fall apart. Ooh, she's a dirty plane. That flap has seen some dirt. Of course, where it really should be dirty is underneath. It should be absolutely filthy down here. Because those wheels toss anything and everything up at the wings. So usually the wings inside of the engines are usually filthy with dirt and whatever else these wheels fling up at them. So if you want a realistic dirty airplane, that's where you're going to see more dirt. You're going to see a lot of engine exhaust, soot down the back of the airplane, especially kind of underneath the pylon there. And you're going to see lots of stuff, just dirt, just all over the underside of the wings and the flaps because the wheels just kick it up as you're rolling down the runway. So well done. You can even see through that vent. Or is it catching a reflection? I guess it's not even New Orleans yet. This is just like the mouth of the Mississippi here. New Orleans is still like another 100 miles up ahead. It's crazy how far out how much land has just been made out here, all from stuff being carried down that river. How much of America's topsoil has ended up here. Washed away down the river, ending up in the Gulf of Mexico. Anything fail yet? No, failures are still on. Come on, failures. We can do this. What can we fail that's interesting? Fail electrical systems, generators. Hydraulics is always makes things a little more interesting. Fail the engine-driven pumps, the backup pumps, standby pumps, leaks. I've never even really looked through this to see everything that can be failed. Transponder fail, TCAS terrain, weather radar system, wind shear system, clocks fail. Some of these are fairly easy. Wheels and brakes. Brake failure, tire balance. Anti-skid valves, brake system control unit, temperature, auto brake control system. Really just waiting for something to happen. Sailing along. Fat, dumb, and happy, waiting for something to happen. We are going to land in DFW at 1550, so not too long now. A little over an hour. So in about 15 or 20 minutes, we're probably going to have to start setting up. Can you imagine living down here on these spits of land here? I mean, absolutely beautiful to have, like, the waterfront and the ocean right at your doorstep, but I would be paranoid about hurricane season, man. Like this entire area, you got to just assume like half this is going to be underwater every time a hurricane rolls through here. I would not want to live there. Great place to visit. I would really love visiting there, but I would not want to live on this township along the river here. It seems like you're doomed to flooding and damage every time there's a hurricane. Yeah, exactly. Looks like it's definitely going to flood this whole area. Because your house is probably like 4 feet above sea level if you live on this strip of land here, maybe 10 feet. I think you can kind of see the city of New Orleans coming up there in the distance. I'm trying to think what else is on our way. Just put in a couple more fixes in the next couple airports we're going to fly past. Houston. It's a little closer than DFW, yeah. Fly past Houston, that'll probably be the next big city, so. I mean, don't get me wrong, beautiful place to live. And I'm sure the soil is great farming soil around there because it gets flooded often enough. But yeah, I would not want to, I don't think I would want to live there. I would just be paranoid. Absolutely paranoid. You're going to lose your house every single time there's a hurricane, and it happens every couple of years. Certainly if you're living in these areas here, you're kind of on your own. Not to mention the fact that when the hurricane does approach, you have to evacuate. There's only one way. You got to go all the way back. You got to drive up to New Orleans, and then you got to drive through New Orleans and somehow get onto the mainland. It's, yeah, it seems like a lot of bottlenecks too, especially trying to evacuate as you know, a place like New Orleans. All right. Well, since nothing's happening for a couple minutes here, my coffee is empty, and I definitely need some more of that. So I think I'm going to step away just for a couple minutes here, just to refill my coffee cup. There's the outside view. Yeah, give me 3 or 4 minutes, guys. I'll be back. Let me just bring up my... Yeah, just refill my coffee cup, and I'll be right back. No flight attendant apparently is going to bring it to me today, so... give me 3 minutes, guys, and I will be right back. All right. Back in the flight deck. I'm just noticing that there's a discrepancy here. I'm just noticing that the actual Zulu time is 15:39. Nope, that's what I wanted. So my question is, why does my clock think it's only 14:38? Why is the Zulu time wrong? Isn't that weird? Why is the time wrong? There we go. That was weird. Now the time's correct. That's more realistic now. That was odd. I don't know why the time was incorrect there. Alright, welcome to the city of New Orleans. And the airport's just on the west side. Somewhere. Here's New Orleans. So the airport should be right over here somewhere. Just don't see it yet. Probably hidden behind that cloud. There's an airport down here. I believe that's the naval base or the Air Force base. I haven't been to New Orleans for a long time. We used to go there quite a bit. I haven't done it in a while. I haven't done it since they opened the new terminal. That new terminal looked. It was almost done last time I was there. It looked absolutely gorgeous. I imagine it's done now. There's the lakefront airport. Well, it's lakefront. And I can't even see, is that the bridge over the lake? So there's a bridge that goes right over this whole lake. I think that's it. It's supposed to be it right there. I don't even see it. The auto-generated scenery must not have believed that a bridge could be that long across that lake. So it just deleted it. I don't see it anywhere. I don't see any line across that lake. It's pretty much straight north-south across that lake. There's a bridge. Where is the airport? Oh, there it is. I see it now. I don't know if you guys can see it there, but there it is. Just hidden behind the clouds there. A racetrack down there of some kind. Obviously a golf course. Like, it's just amazing just to sort of sit and just look and explore. Like, you could just literally stand here all day, sit and explore these areas. There's the stadium there in New Orleans. See all the different, like a network of different canals that they try to use to drain the city when it starts flooding. And it's crazy, like when you go to New Orleans. Like I've been there a few times, and you're flying along, and like there's, you know, the whole city is surrounded by a series of dikes, of hills that to block any water. But then there's gaps in the hills for the roads and the railroads to come through, and there's giant floodgates, doors that will just block the rail line and prevent the water from coming through. So most of the time it's empty, but then whenever there's a risk of flood, then they just block the rail line with this giant waterproof gate. Wouldn't it just be easier to build a city somewhere that isn't so flood prone? Yep. Nope, for whatever reason that I think that's it right there. That's supposed to be the northern edge. It's just supposed to come straight across. It's somewhere right along here. And it joins on the other side, but yep. Sobo's technology said that we can't have a road going across that lake, so it's just been deleted. The bridge is just gone. I wonder, is the Confederation Bridge there? I don't think I've ever looked for it. Superdome, thank you, yeah, that's what it's called. I do not know my stadiums. Is the Confederation Bridge exist in Microsoft Flight Simulator? It must. Surely it must. But then again, if this, I can't even think what this is called, but this causeway here doesn't exist, then maybe not. They do actually have boats in the canal there, though, or in the river there, though. Alright, back in the flight deck. It's going to be time for us to start setting up soon here. So why don't we see if we got any ATC. Nope. The only ones I see right now still are Jack Center, so that's not going to help me, but let's see if we can get some weather for DFW. Alright, so the winds are calm. Love it. 10 miles, clear skies, 3006. So, let's just have a quick look at the real world and see which direction they're landing real world. Alright, so KDFW right now has no flights. Kidding me? Why is it showing no flights? Oh. That's why. Because I made a mistake, that's why. Alright, looks like, yeah, landing and departing south flows, so I believe that's what we're already set up for. Yeah, we did 17 left. I might even set up for the center. I can't tell if they're landing. It looks like they're landing on the left side. Trying to follow a couple of airplanes in here on FlightAware. And it looks like they're landing on 17 left, which is a long taxi in. Yeah, I see two planes falling over each other trying to land on 17 left. So, yeah, I think we'll stick with 17 left as a landing runway. I think that's pretty reasonable at this point. So we'll go with 17 left for arrivals, which I'm 90% sure is what we've already got in the FMC, right? Departure, arrival, ILS 17 left, and the Barry 1 arrival. So that appears to be all correct. What am I doing here? So let's go to DFW. While we're at it, we can probably purge ourselves of all these Miami charts. We don't need those anymore. So DFW, the Barry 1, perfect, that's what I'm looking for. ILS, I'm going to put 17 center and 17 left. And taxi chart. And the other thing, actually, I just realized, that was the other thing I was going to look up, was a flight. So let's search for a flight from Miami to DFW. So we have a gate to park at when we get to DFW. Alright, so there is a American flight arrived a couple hours ago, so we'll use that one. It went to gate Alpha 39. Alright, so we're going to go with this one, I think. It's gate Alpha 39. Right there in the corner. Perfect. Alright, so that'll be gate Alpha 39. At least it'll be easy to find, the last one. Alright, so we're going to need set up for the ILS 17 left here. 111.75 and 176. 176 and 111.75. $176 and $111.75. Whoops. Alright, 111.75, 176, the inbound course, it's all set, and the minimums, 745. At least this time we don't have to worry about landing down to minimums like we did last time in Miami. I guess it was actually a tropical storm. I didn't even realize there was a tropical storm, or it wasn't quite tropical storm status, but it was very close anyways. Why that rain persisted in Miami for days and days and days. It's really nice when we left today. 7:40. 7:45. Yeah, 7:45. Yep, that's correct. Okay, perfect. We will need some landing speeds. We'll just go with a nice flat 30. That should work. And last but not least, we're going to need some performance calculations. So I'm going to go back in here again and just do my quick performance calculations and make sure we can land on the runway here. Even without looking, I'm going to say I am 90% certain we can do it because it's something like an 8,000-foot runway, but the pilot in me says always double check. Always be sure that you can land. So performance in flight. Cruise. Normal landing configuration, flaps 30, dry runway. Alright, so normal configuration landing. Alright, and so let's have a quick look here. What's our landing weight forecast to be? 121,000. So if we do auto brake 2, the normal reference landing distance is 6,900. We could pretty much take 450 off that, so take us back to about 6,500. But we're 1,000 feet above sea level, so 6,700. Temperature per 10 degrees above ISA. What was the temperature in DFW? DFW it's 32, so it's almost 20 degrees above ISA. So 67 plus another 400. We're looking at 7,100. And we do have all of our reversers. So we're looking at 6,700 with 2. What was the landing distance again? We're looking at 8,500. Maybe we'll even go auto brake 3. Auto brake 3 gives us 54. 51, 53, and then 50. 53 plus 100 plus 300, 5,600. Yeah, let's do 5,600. So let's do auto brake 3 on this one. That gives us a landing distance of less than 6,000 feet anyway, so it should be more than sufficient for what we're doing today. And then I think we're ready for a briefing. Nothing much has happened yet. We still have these things on. We're waiting for something to happen, but nothing much has happened yet. So, all right. While we're waiting for something to happen, we're going to do a quick briefing here. So let's start with the Berry 1 RNAV arrival. Just going to move this out of the way so we can see the FLC a little better here. Alright, so it's going to be the Berry 1 RNAV arrival. The speeds are in and the distances are checked. We're looking at, let's see, it's plate 60-2 and effective on the 22nd of April of 2021. So radar, DDI, and GPS and RNAV 1 required. Turbojets only for use when DFW is landing south. Perfect. We're going to start this arrival at Peanuts, which we're on our way to right now. After Peanuts, we go to Clues, Popsy, Muzzy at 290 knots between 300 and 240. Berry, 280 knots between 23 and 20. Bells, 270 between 17 and 15. Tacky, 270 between 15 and 13. Wards, 250 between 13 and 11. Diets, 220 knots at 11,000 feet. Then we go to Wahoot and Headman. And then after that, we continue on that vector straight ahead 356 until we vector ourselves around, because I don't see any ATC coming online right now, for the ILS runway 17 left into DFW, 61-3, effective on the 18th September 2014. So LOC 111.75 and 176. Let's just check it again. 111.75 is set both sides, and 176 set for both inbound courses. Perfect. The glide slope for G-Bush is 2,300. And the ILSDA, we've got 745, and I double-checked that one, so I know that's set the touchdown zone, or the airport, at 607 feet, so we should be at 600 feet for the airport, so I was pretty close. The MSA, minimum sector altitude around the Maverick VOR, which is just at the field pretty much, is 3,600 to the south. And missed approach is climb heading 1020, then a climbing left turn to 3,000 feet on a heading of 151. And then outbound on the Maverick 127 radial to the taxi intersection and hold. Yeah, so there it is. So 127 and then direct taxi and hold, or is it directed by ATC? So 3,000 feet, left turn 151 and out to taxi. DME is required. Simultaneous approach is authorized with 17 center and right, 18 left and right, and BG side and ILS glide path not coincident. Notes on the plan: radar required for procedure entry from the en route environment. Okay, we're going to give ourself radar vectoring. ILS glide slope is at 3 degrees. PAPI's on the left. LSF2 lighting system. We should daytime it's VMC, so we shouldn't need that. We shouldn't need the minimum visibility of RVR 1800. After landing on 17 left, it's a convenient right turn off the runway. We're probably going to target Quebec 7, and that rolls us nicely onto Echo Romeo for the Echo Sierra route. So we'll go Echo Romeo, round the south end, Echo Sierra, Juliet Sierra, transition over to Kilo, and up to spot 22 for gate 39. So spot 22 here, we'll enter for gate 39. Our gate's right there in the corner. Terrain, again, 3,600 feet to the south for the Maverick VOR. Weather is looking like a beautiful day. Calm winds. Hot. That's about the only thing I can really say about DFW. 32 degrees. It's going to be a hot one. And operational. Nothing is broken on the airplane yet. MELs, or sorry, no TAMs. No TAMs for DFW. And there's always lots of stuff going on in DFW. Kilo between Echo Quebec and Echo Romeo closed, so we may have to sidestep around that. Zulu, Yankee, Papa, Echo Lima. I don't see any of the taxiways that we are. Taxiway Lima between Echo Romeo and Echo Quebec closed, that's fine. November commissioned. Altimeter is unreliable. Don't cat 2 approaches without approved means of alternate compliance. 17 left. Closed airspan. Wingspan more than 214 feet. That's fine. We do not fall into that category. ILS 17 left. I don't see. Cat 2 is not approved. That's fine. I don't see anything at all for 17 left in here, so we are good to go. Yeah, perfect. Love it. So I don't see anything untowards. And then to go to our alternate, I forget, but we need, I think, 65? 6,500. Right now we're showing overhead with 10,000. So we've got about 3,000 to 4,000 extra. So we got lots of time. If we do a go around, we don't have to panic. If we have any holding because ATC comes online and suddenly DFW saturated, we also don't have to worry. Looking good. Not too much to talk about. That's all I got. Any questions? No? All right. Perfect. Love it. Come on. Why is nothing failing on me? I really want to see something fail. We had a lot of people watching. It's kind of petered out now, but I would like to see something fail. I would like a challenge. I mean, at the end of the day, mechanical failures are not the only challenge you face in this industry. There's tons and tons of things that go wrong every day. From computer system failures, you know, loading system failures and checking computer failures to unruly passengers, medical issues, to just the general short-staffedness, which results in everybody leaving late. You know, you board up all the passengers, you're like, okay, so where's our ramp crew? Oh, you don't have a ramp crew yet. They'll be with you in 30 to 45 minutes. Oh, well, that's useful. Thanks for that. There's any number of things that's constantly just managing, you know, passenger miscount. Figures the failure is the lack of failures. Yeah, the failure system has failed. Passenger miscount. We had a passenger miscount the other day. We were off by one person, and it's silly, but it's especially because we were, you know, flying across the international border. We have to know exactly precisely who is on the airplane. We can't have a disagreement about who's on the airplane, who's not. Customs will not look upon that favorably, to say the least. So even though we'd actually taken the bridge off, by the time we got the final numbers, they're like, oh, nope, you're off. So we had to put the bridge back on. The agent had to come down and go check, see which seats were empty and see if they could figure out which passenger somehow snuck past and got on the airplane without being properly checked in. And unfortunately it happens from time to time. People make mistakes, they make errors, systems do not work the way they're supposed to, but then you just spend a lot of time resolving it. Why does it not work the way it's supposed to, and how do we solve this situation? It's, you know, when you look at like a modern airline flight, like it's such a complicated machine, the whole airline industry, and everything. There's so many moving parts, and they all have to move in unison at the right time for an on-time departure. And any one of them failing can set the whole thing back, whether it be grooming personnel, catering personnel, ramp staff, gate agents, any number of people maybe not being in the right place at the right time, fueler. Any number of things not being in the right place at the right time can result in a late departure. Passengers not being in the right place at the right time. It hasn't been as bad lately, but it used to be. It was one of our number one sources of delays was passengers not being on the airplane. Because if a passenger doesn't make it to their flight on time for whatever reason, if they get stuck in the terminal, stuck at customs or security or whatever, if they had a checked bag and it's loaded on the airplane, guess what? Now we have to unload it. We can't permit people to travel without their checked baggage. It's just ever since I think it was Air India. It's the law in pretty much every country that you have to be on board the airplane for your suitcase to go on the airplane. And if you, for whatever reason, don't make it to the flight on time, like I said, you get stopped at security or something, but your suitcase makes it on the flight, guess what? Now we got to dump out your suitcase. And usually, it's almost always the first suitcase that went in, so it's at the very bottom of the pile. Ramp guys have to dump every bag back out of the hole to find the one they're looking for, unload it, and then put everything back in. So very quickly, that can add a huge delay. If they're lucky, it's one of the ones near the top. It's one of the first ones they look at. But most of the time, they have to dump out half the cargo bay or more to find the one bag they're looking for. So it quickly adds up to a whole lot of stress, a whole lot of delays. It hasn't been the situation as much lately. Lately, it's been more just general staffing issues. It seems like no department is really fully staffed anymore. And I thought it was interesting. The British government, the British Civil Aeronautics Board, which basically is responsible for managing the airline industry in Great Britain, sent a letter to all the carriers and said, guys, you got to make sure that your schedules are manageable. You've got to have some padding in there. Your schedules have to be realistic based on your actual staffing levels, and you got to make sure there's a little bit of padding in there for when things go wrong, because if you plan everything to work perfectly in the airline industry with absolutely no margins, then the second something goes wrong, there's a cascading failure down the road. If one flight does not leave on time for whatever reason, maybe, like I said, like they had to find one particular bag and it delays the flight by 20 minutes. Now the ramp crew is not available to go to the next flight on time. The flight crew is now behind, and if they have to go change planes somewhere else, they may be behind. So when they get to their next location, then that can impact 3 different flights. The cabin crew may be going off to one flight. The front end crew, the flight crew, might be going off to a different flight, and the airplane might be doing a 3rd flight. So that's now 3 flights that might be delayed 20 minutes because the first flight was delayed by 20 minutes. Not to mention the fact that then there's probably a 4th flight delayed because the ramp crew now shows up late for the next flight. So everything is so tightly linked together, and there's very little slack scheduled in the system that one delay often very quickly multiplies across a day into 4, 5, 6 flights now delayed, and each one of those probably then percolates to another half dozen flights delayed. It snowballs very quickly. It's very hard to recover from when it starts to get out of control, and it doesn't take a lot. It takes one delayed flight sometimes to start the cascade of events that then will delay another half a dozen flights down the road. And everyone's just playing catch up for the rest of the day. Crew runs out of duty day, ends up with a flight canceled. It's just, it's a nightmare sometimes. Fortunately, in my sim world, my flights always seem to leave on time. My ramp crew is always ready. My airplane is always fueled. I don't know how much more I have to chuck this up to for it to actually do something. Like, we're already now, what are we, 50 miles away from starting our arrival, and nothing has happened yet. Huh. I think the entire time I was flying the 737 in P3D, I think I only had 2 random service-based failures. I never had like the random like timed failures turned on, but I had service-based failures turned on, and I think the entire time I flew the PMDG 737 in P3D, and that was probably no shortage of hours, probably 300, 400, 500 hours. I think I had 2 random failures in that time. I remember one of them was on stream. I think we had a pressurization fault on stream, which is kind of unexpected. And like I said, it was kind of interesting. It kind of made us have to think about the implications or ramifications for the rest of our flight. I wonder how noisy this airplane is because of this windshield wiper here. Most airplanes these days store their wipers vertically, and one of the reasons is because it's parallel to the wind. You would not think that this makes a lot of wind noise, so this makes a lot of wind noise right here. Having this wiper horizontal, kind of being dragged through the air horizontally instead of straight up and down where it's kind of streamlined to the air, can make a huge amount of noise. The Dash 8, it was very pronounced when the wipers were down. Huge amount of noise. If you happen to stop them in the fully up position here, where they were parallel to the window post here, you could reduce the amount of noise in the flight deck by a substantial amount. You'd never think that, but most of the airplane is very smooth. So you put like one big protrusion sticking out there like this, just sweeping through the air, it does add a lot of noise. That's why most jets these days, usually the park position for the wipers is vertical to reduce that extra noise and drag when you don't need it. That's why it's kind of surprised me, but I guess the 737 is not exactly a new design, so it's not something that they were necessarily thinking about when they're trying to improve efficiency. In the grand scheme of things, does that really take away a lot of efficiency? No, probably not. Like, probably the 2 wipers combined, maybe a 0.5% more drag on the airplane, but you multiply that by an airplane service lifetime, it starts to add up after a while. It's definitely a little bit more fuel that gets burned every single day because that wiper's in that position. That makes me wonder now. At some airplanes, what they do is they actually have like a little nook almost underneath the window where the wiper hides when it's out of the way, when it's not being used. So it's in the down position, but it sort of hides there out of the way. But a lot of airplanes, they just simply park the wipers vertically now. So I'm looking here, and the A330, for example, and even the A380, they seem to store the wipers horizontally. But now the newer ones, the newer generation, the A350, I'm just looking at the pictures here on the other screen, and it's the A350, they've gone to the vertical park position. And again, it's a little bit less drag, a little bit less noise for the crew as well when they're sitting in the airplane for 8, 10, 12 hours. Yeah, and again, more modern airliners, you see it more often now. I'm looking at the Dreamliner vertical park position. But 6.7, the 3.7, all horizontally parked. It wasn't something that was really thought about a lot until now, but airlines and airframe manufacturers are trying to squeeze every last second of efficiency, every last drop of efficiency out of these airplanes, minimize the fuel burn, minimize wasted fuel. Not only is it bad for the environment, but it costs the airlines money. Sadly, in North America, fuel is still viewed as a very cheap resource. It's funny when you read like most of the airport orientations for almost every European airport and almost every European airport. It says mandatory APU must be shut down within 5 minutes of arrival. Mandatory cannot be started more than 10 minutes prior to scheduled departure. In North America, we just let them run. The general consensus is let them run. Don't even bother plugging in ground power half the time or air conditioning. Just let the APU run for an entire turn, 30, 45 minutes on the ground, rather than plugging ground power and turn them off and turn them back on again afterwards. It would be such a change in mentality if they were to do that. I personally would support it. I think it's a good idea. I mean, the whole point of the ground power is to reduce the wear and tear of the APU, and reduce the pollution. The ground power unit uses a fraction of the energy, and no matter where the energy is coming from, even if it's coming from a coal plant, it's still a fraction of the pollution that's coming out of the back of this APU, which is burning easily 150 to 250 pounds an hour when it's running, just to generate electricity and air conditioning. But we you have ground-based systems that are much more energy efficient that we can use, but for some reason North America, using them is not a priority. Go to Europe and it's absolutely mandatory unless the ground power is broken at your gate. The ground power goes on within that first 5 minutes and you are shutting the APU down right away. You're not leaving it running forever and ever. And I try, personally I try to do that. I hate the idea of just polluting the environment for no reason. When we have a suitable alternative that's a lot cleaner, why are we polluting the environment when we don't have to? Never mind the wasted money and the wasted fuel. All that extra carbon that goes into the atmosphere running these APUs for hours and hours when they don't have to run. When if we had ground power and air conditioning carts, they'd be fine. We could shut the APU down, but we don't for whatever reason. All right, here comes Peanuts. We're about to start our arrival into DFW. Still nothing has failed us. I don't think anything's gonna fail, guys. Beginning of the day, or it's going to be on short final. Something's going to fail us. I almost did the go around. I'm a little more mentally prepared for it now. I almost did that go around Miami. I actually reviewed the go around procedure on that last flight to Miami because it was so tight. It was right down to minimums. I think we got the lights on the runway like 30 feet above minimums. It was so tight. The rain was so heavy and the ceiling was pretty low. Should have done a Cat 2 or something on that case. I didn't think it was going to be that bad. Oh well, no problem. All right. 230 miles left to go. That's probably the flying route, right? Yeah. In reality, we're about less than 200 miles from the airport. That going off. I hear beeping on my other screen, and I think it's, oh, you know what it is? It's Discord. That's what it is. Discord. I opened the Discord to check my chat there again. Well, I think I pretty much run out of things to talk about. If anybody has any questions to ask while we're waiting for something to happen here, just waiting for something to fail, please feel free, but I have not, I think I pretty much run out of my topics to talk about this time around. I'm always trying to keep an eye out for interesting topics, and I really, like that WizzAir one especially, really kind of just made me say, what's wrong with you, man? Like, honestly, like, if your staff are not showing up to work at that rate, there's something seriously wrong with the way the company's running. And saying, oh, well, you're just booking off too much, doesn't even come close to solving the problem, doesn't even show your employees any respect. They don't, you know, you will get a percentage of people that really don't care about their job and will not show up, you know, almost regardless of what you do. But the vast majority of people, when they take a job, they care about it. They want the company to succeed. They want to do their job. You know, I mean, in the airline industry, we're in the customer service industry. We're here to do a job, provide transportation from place to place. We all want to get it done. But we all are human beings with physical limitations, and I feel like airline executives often forget that the people running the operation are human beings with physical limitations. They cannot just generate an infinite amount of work. We can't just work endlessly. But to actually go and say that to your staff, you guys are calling in sick, you guys are calling in fatigue too much. That's not a problem with the staff, that's a problem with the management. Something away about the way that airline is running is just not sustainable. Alright, so Houston's about 100 miles off the left wing. Dallas is about 200 miles straight ahead. Still no ATC, huh? All I still see is Jacksonville Center. Well, I mean, I shouldn't complain. For a Friday morning, we got some ATC. That's better than nothing, right? Nope, everything appears to work still. Nothing's failed yet. Random failures my rear end. Because I just hate to pick a failure, because if you pick a failure, you know what's going to fail. You just sort of, there's no shock and startle factor to it. You can contemplate the implications when you pick a failure before you even pick it. Of course, now we've lost most of our viewers too, so now I've kind of lost that interest in actually seeing those failures through. I'm curious, what do you guys think would be the most interesting failure to kind of deal with? What would require the most thought? Pick a failure from our book of failures here. Airspeed unreliable, always a good one. Can we fail the airspeed indications? It does lead us to no, it doesn't factor into your pilot's life, but you're very dissatisfied. Well, you, my friend, must be the only one, because I am running 100% satisfaction in the back of my bird here, so obviously people like the way we fly. I don't even have too many people in this airplane today. It's only 75 people. It's only a half full. Look at that. Like, it's not even half full. I don't know why. SimBrief has not been filing these very full lately. It's funny because, like, I used to think, like, SimBrief was a little overkill on, oh, it's always full. Like, it was always, like, 80 to 90% full was always what the, pardon me, what the SimBrief flight plans would kind of output as their randomized passenger loads. It's switched recently, and I notice it's now, SimBrief seems to generate like closer to half loads more often, but it's funny because in the real world, almost every flight is full every day, and that's the trouble too. Like, there's no room for recovery. When a flight does get canceled, all the flights the next day are usually full. The flights the day after that are usually full. There might be 1 or 2 seats, but to try and displace, 75 or 100 or 150 people onto the next day, there's usually not enough slack in the system, and we end up, having to bump people, or people get bumped back 2 or 3 or 4 days. AOA sensor failure, come on. Can we fail the airspeed indicator in this? I'm curious. Oh, I saw that now. Boo. Oh, well, what are you going to do? Navigation. Is there flight instruments separately? Flight instruments, that's what I'm looking for. Flight instruments. DU, left fail, DUs, DEU, standby, ADI, RMI. That's it. You can't fail the ADS separately, huh? Or the you can't fail the airspeed indicator separately. I assume that would be under flight instruments normally. Yeah, you can fail the FMCs and everything. We did have one failure. It's not very exciting. See if anything else failed before we get there. Ah, pity I saw that. Oh well. Something did eventually fail. And you know what? It kind of adds some interest, because next time we'll have to do... Cool, the landing gear failure, some interest for him. Yeah, I think if I have a crash, though, it doesn't count as a successful flight on my pilot's life career. I'll have to go and redo the leg. So it looks like the APU has failed. That's what I get for exploring. But it does kind of make some interest, because next time what we can do is we can leave it failed and we can do an air start next time. It definitely makes life a little bit more challenging for pushing back off the gate and starting things up. It's not a failure that's really inherently very... It does add some danger. In the real world, like an APU failure is not the end of the world. We can definitely fly these airplanes for a period of time without an APU, but it just turns into one of those royal pain in the rear end moments if you have an APU failure, because then you have to use an air cart to start engine number 1. Then you've got to use a cross bleed start to start engine number 2. So it is definitely doable, but it adds a bit more risk, because first of all, now you're starting an engine at the gate with the ramp crew moving around the airplane. Instead of, during the pushback when generally people are a little bit further away. So it's a little bit higher risk when you're starting an APU at the gate, or starting an engine at the gate with the air cart. If you're careful, it's definitely very safely doable. It happens quite regularly, so it's definitely possible to do it safe. But there is an increased risk factor, because now you've got guys who then have to go and disconnect the air hoses and the ground power after you started the first engine, instead of keeping everybody clear of the airplane when the engines are started. So there's definitely some increased risk, but more than anything, it's also just a real pain in the butt, because it just takes longer. The whole process takes about 5 or 6 minutes longer just to get it all kind of done. So, but that being said, I think we'll keep that failure in there. So we'll make sure that failure is there on the next flight, and when we do the next flight, we'll just roll with an MEL'd APU. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and I see the top of descent's coming up. I still don't see any ATC, so we're going to go ahead and put the bottom altitude of our star, 11,000. So we'll roll it for a couple of legs with that APU unserviceable and see what happens. What a lame failure. Yeah, that was not what I was looking for, but, well, there it is. But let's do this. Because as soon as something fails in the airplane too, any crew that's usually worth their salt is going to go and they're going to look at they're going to go and they're going to try and figure out like what are the implications. So even before I've contacted our dispatch, I will usually bring up our maintenance control, or even while I'm waiting on hold with our maintenance control, I will go and I will start looking up the MEL in our MEL system here, so that I can find out what the implications are, and I can be ready to deal with it even before I've talked to the guy. So he says, "Yeah, we're gonna just defer it." Boom! I've already got the page ready. Looking for 49. APU is almost always 49, so I went too far. So let's see what it has to say here about the APU if we just defer the whole thing. Schematics 36. So we're looking for ATA 46. Looking for 49 is the APU. Airborne Auxiliary Power Unit. Alright, so if we MEL the whole APU, we have one installed. We don't require one for dispatch, except for extended range of operations. Maybe an operative provided that procedures not require its use, and perform a visual inspection of the tail cone area and the adjacent control surface to confirm that there is no evidence of heat damage or delamination. So if something failed in the APU, we got to go out there before the next flight and check and make sure nothing. We know, it didn't cause any damage as it failed. So that's if you take the whole system offline. If you know specifically what failed with the APU, you can take certain parts of it offline. Most of the time, they just take the whole APU offline. If the start power unit fails, then we don't require use of the APU. There's a whole bunch of different things that can. There's a whole bunch of different things that can that we can MEL relate to the APU, or we can just usually number one is just the whole system itself. Just the whole APU is just blocked off, breakered, collared, and shut down. Yeah, it's a bit of a lame failure. That's why I opted to 2. Let's see if anything else happens. I don't know if anything else is going to fail, but we'll see. Otherwise, we're almost there. Top descent in like 5 minutes here. Just going to go check where's my VATSIM. There's a few other inbounds into DFW. 1, 2. Actually, 1. Sorry, he's not at DFW. So 1 guy in front of me. Looks like he's in front of us on the same arrival here. So we'll try to make sure we don't run him over as we're coming in. It looks like he's fairly far ahead. He's probably at least 20 or 30 miles ahead. So we'll keep an eye out on the TCAS, make sure we don't run into him. But yeah, there is one aircraft out there. I assume it's popped up on here. Yep, there he is. Yep, nope, he's being drawn. It's 31.6 miles away according to my V-pilot. And there's the descent. So let's do this descent checklist. Alright, pressurization, landing altitude is set to 600 feet. Recall. Checked. Auto brake, level 3. Landing data, so we've got VREF of 130 and Faro minimums of 745. And approach briefing is completed, so the descent checklist is complete. Down we go. There's more voice interaction than I realized on this sometimes. I haven't even really been spending too much time with this system. I let it kind of grade the flying, but should try to interact with the captain group a bit more. Alright, nothing else failing on me? Everything's still going hunky-dory? It does change the color in kind of a nice way. Makes the horizon a little bit less hazy. Maybe we'll try and use that on the approach again today. I tried to use it the other night and I just found it was almost blocking what I need to see too much. A little too dark, but now that it's daytime, we'll do that. I should have used that on my approach down to minimums Miami. I forget that it's there. I am not used to having a heads-up system at all, so I forget that it's there way too easily. Elevation is, what do we say, 607? Alright, now we got that set up. Hopefully it'll help us out as we're going down. Not a bad little flight. It's been an annoying couple of weeks, I gotta say. I actually spent almost more time at work deadheading from one airport to another than actually operating in the last 2 weeks of work as well, which to me is also crazy. I think I flew, oh, let's see here. In the last 8 days I was at work. I'd have to look at my schedule to remember now. I flew like, the first 4 days was okay, and then the second 4 days just completely disintegrated. But the first 4 days, let's see here, we did, I'm trying to remember now. So the first 4 days we did 2 that day, we did 2 that day. So in 8 days of work, I flew 13 legs, but I also deadheaded for 5 of them, which is just a ridiculous amount to be spending positioning in the back of an airplane. I'm just not a big fan of sitting in the back. This is the one time where, like, the kind of anchored camera that doesn't necessarily follow all the wobbles of the aircraft feels kind of odd when you're in the airplane. It's wobbling this much from one end to the other. You need a fixed camera here. See, like this. There we go. Alright, should really pay attention to what's going on here because we're going to be landing before we know it here. Instead of playing with my airplane. Because what fun is the airplane if you don't play with it, right? Hopefully PMDG will fix this issue soon. They know about it. They're very well aware of it. They're just trying to figure out what exactly is causing it and how to resolve it. But it's funny because, like, PMDG, the one thing that I do find a little odd is how much time and effort PMDG put into this airplane. And yet Fenix came along and created the 320, and it seems like maybe it was done in less time, or maybe that just nobody knew about it early. I don't know. I find it odd the way... We really should speed up to maintain that 270 knots. Yeah, I just find it a little odd the way that Fenix was able to sort of... Then they were able to produce an EFB and everything in less time than PMDG, who's been doing this for so much longer. I do find that a little odd that Fenix is able to bring such a high-quality product to the marketplace so quickly and easily. At least it's appeared quickly and easily, or maybe they just were not as public about their struggles as PMDG was. PMDG has been... One good thing about PMDG is they are good communicators. They do communicate what they're doing a lot of the time. It may sometimes be a week or two between them, but they do kind of give people regular updates as to what's going on and why things are working or not working the way they're supposed to. Oops, that's just me. And maybe that's the reason why, like, Fenix was just more coy and didn't really start talking about stuff till it was almost done the development phase. But, you know, they came out with their product and it felt largely complete. Like, they have their EFB. Their EFB is very workable. I haven't seen too many issues with things like clipping screens and stuff like that. Like, it seems like they have a product that came out in a fairly complete format right at the start. Here's a really neat piece of trivia that I was learning about the other night. Did you know that when DFW was built, there was actually already another airplane, or another airport at the boundary of DFW that they had to close down when they built DFW? And that this other airport had only been open, it was supposed to be the major regional airport. It only opened for like 15 years, and then they closed it down and replaced it with DFW. So they built this airport. It wasn't huge. It's not nearly as big as DFW, but it had like a good, I think it was a solid 9,000 foot primary runway, 2 other shorter runways. The terminal building was not huge. It was a fairly small terminal building. But it had only been in operation for like 15 years, and then they ended up tearing it down because they ended up building this huge major airport just on the northern boundary of the original airport's property, and a small part of the original airport still exists. And there's transition set 3006. So if you go to the very south end of the DFW property and kind of go south from runway 18 left, just as you get almost to the edge of the property where there's a highway, there's this strange little bit of pavement down there that almost looks a little bit like a runway. Well, it actually is a runway. It's the northern edge of that former airport that existed there. I was just reading about this the other day, and I thought it was just a... I've gone to DFW, I can't count how many times. Dozens and dozens of times. I've seen that piece of pavement before. I thought it was odd because it looks like a taxiway. It's very, it's concrete. It's very square, with expansion gaps in it. It looks like a taxiway. It doesn't look like a roadway. But, it turns out that it is the northern end, the last remnant of this old airport that got demolished, shut down, and eventually bulldozed for make way for DFW. And now most of the former airport property is kind of a business development and a little bit of residential housing as well. But the one major street through that is actually the old runway. When they built this street, they just simply put up some barricades on the old down the median of the old runway, and now they call it a street. Yeah, I had no idea that right there it was called Greater Southwestern Airport. It was also called something else. I can't recall now. 250 for Wards, so we should start slowing up now. 250. But I had no idea that there was another airport just on the boundary, because there's lots of other airports around here. We all know about Dallas Love Field, which is just north of Dallas. I think that's Dallas Love right there, because this is downtown Dallas right here. There's another airport right there. There's an old Air Force base just right over here on the shore of this lake. So there's all sorts of other airports around here still. But yeah, there was another abandoned airport that it's almost all gone, but there's a little hint of it still. I was reading on this historical website all about it. I was like, oh, I had no idea there was an airport there all this time. Alright, looks like the traffic ahead of me has already turned downwind. I don't know. Can't see him. Don't see him, but he's up ahead somewhere here. Yeah, so there's Dallas Love right there. That's Dallas downtown right there. DFW is, yeah, there it is right in front of us. There's the, that's runway 31 right there. So we're going to swing around and land on 17 left. They love their freeways in Dallas, I'll say that. Love their freeways, just on and on, out forever into the Texas countryside. Pave it all over. Something a little odd happened with the scenery there. One tile of scenery does not look very good there for some reason. Alright, that's 12 descending 11. Let's see if we can at least spot this Delta flight maybe as he turns final. Alright, there's 11,000. This is what I'm called again, it's the Berry one. DFW traffic, American 415 is joining a left downwind, runway 17 left on the Berry 1 arrival. Oh, hold on, I see the TCAS target out there. Yeah, he is just on the base turn now. It's like... Alright. Since there's no ATC, we're just going to go down to about 4,000 feet for our base turn. Level change, 4,000. while we're at it, let's do lights, seatbelts, and approach checklist. Approach checklist simply says altimeters 3006 inches set and cross-checked. Approach checklist is complete. So if we can get down to 3,000, as long as we cross Inwood at 3,000, we'll be okay. Just an absolutely huge airport. When they originally built it, it was out in the sticks. So, yeah, right there. If you see that right there, that was the north end of the former Greater Southwest Airport. And they actually paved this road here right on top of the old runway. They didn't even pave it. They just simply painted some lines on it and called it a road. So right there, that's the north end of the former Great Southwest Airport. I had no idea an airport existed there, but that's what that little bit of pavement is. Right now they use it for like all sorts of like training and stuff like that. You know, emergency service training and all sorts of other stuff. They use that pavement for that. But yeah, that used to be the north end of that runway. Crazy. I had no idea that existed. Most impressive city to fly into. I'm going to generally say New York. I never get tired of that view. It's cliched, but really like, and especially because like the airports in New York are so close to the downtown. Like LaGuardia especially. If we're coming around for the ILS to runway 4, or even the expressway or the park visual to runway 31, you're flying right down the East River. You usually fly right over Manhattan, right over like Central Park, turn, fly down the East River, or not the East River, sorry, fly down the Hudson River, and then turn base out by the Statue of Liberty. Like it just, I never get tired of looking at that view. Dallas is impressive in its own way. Dallas is, I think the thing that's most impressive about Dallas is just how much it's spread out. It just goes on and on and on. The burbs just go on and on. Like, it absolutely huge, sprawling mega city here in the south central U.S. San Francisco and Los Angeles are two other ones that also are really, I find are impressive to fly into. Not that I have much real world experience at that, but just from the simming world, very gorgeous cities to approach into. But out of all the ones we visit, I think New York is certainly the one that I enjoy flying in and out of the most. Do you usually set the acceleration height thrust reduction in the CDU manually, or is it programmed already depending on company CDU? It's a very good question. A lot of companies will usually set their own default values. They'll choose their default values. I usually personally just leave it at the default value. Here in this airplane it's 1500, but a lot of companies I've worked at, they usually use 1,000 feet for their acceleration height. I find most companies I've worked at, they usually actually use 1,000 feet, and I've been lazy. Maybe I should actually start doing that. Start programming in an acceleration height. Transition altitude. Where do I program? I know there's a way to do it on this airplane. I swear there's a way to do it. I can't remember how to do it now, but yeah. Most airlines will probably just get the default.
Traffic Delta 2106 overhead Drock ILS 17 left Dallas Fort Worth.
We'll usually get like we'll usually reprogram their FMC so it comes up as default value. But yeah, you will get, sometimes you'll get something different too. Like you might have a different acceleration altitude published for a particular airport that's a little higher than standard because of, you know, terrain clearance or some kind of reason like that. So there will be occasions where you will have to set up a manual one as well. But most of the time it'll be set by the company SOP, and it'll usually be pre-programmed in your FMC. Usually. DFW traffic, American 415, turning the left base for the ILS runway 17 left. We'll join outside the traffic. Yeah, all the companies I've worked at to date have used 1,000 foot as their acceleration height, not 1,500. So I always kind of find it a little bit odd when I'm waiting to 1,500, but I should just be changing this in here. I don't even know what page to change it on, but there it is. Takeoff page 2, acceleration height. That's what I'm looking for. Alright, but in the meantime, let's actually focus on what we're doing here. Let's get flaps Let's get speed to 10. Let's get a turn going here. Down to a heading of about 200. 200 should work. And did it already sequence itself? Oh, it already sequenced itself. Love it. And we're going through the localizer right now, aren't we? Do it. Yeah, captured. So we'll set 176. Loc. Let's get flaps 1 going. Round we come for DFW. Guess nothing else is going to fail today. Oh well, too bad. Alright, so we're established on the Loc. 10 miles behind the traffic, so I think we're fine. I'm just looking to see if there's anything about single engine taxi in the FCOM here, but I don't see anything. Everything they talk about is long range and holding and all that other stuff. Alright, let's go ahead and slow down some more here. Speed 190. Flaps 5. Now we're starting to catch this guy a little bit here. Alright, glide path and go around altitude is set. Oh, I guess I should actually get my feet on the rudder pedals and start actually getting ready to fly this thing. Alright, 180 to G-Bush. Let's go gear down. That'll get the drag we need. For a second here. Alright. Focus on flying here. Alright, let's put flaps 15. E-brake and ignition. And I'm going to clear us to land because I'm not going to get anybody else to clear me to land here. Land? Yeah, it's on the ground. DREF is 130. DFW traffic, American 415 is on a 5-mile final runway, 17 left.
DFW traffic, Delta 2106, clear runway 17 left DFW.
And flaps 30. Speed set to VREF of 135. Sorry, VF of 135. And landing checklist. Alright, engine start switches are continuous. Speed brake is armed. Landing gear is down, 3 green, and flaps 30 green light. The landing checklist is complete. Here we are, back at home base, DFW. I thought it was a calm wind day. She's kind of a little bit gusty and pumpy here. visual, and there you go, plane. Disengage in the autopilot. Don't be too crazy here. Just keep it on target.
Approaching minimums. 200 minimums.
Landing.
Traffic American 200.
100. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Come on. There it is. Nice. Accelerate enough to make this one. Yeah, just a little bit of hard deceleration there, but perfect. Nice. That was like better.
And ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated where your seat will securely fasten until the cabin turns off the fasten seatbelt sign, indicating that we have.
Alright, clearing the runway.
Please be careful when opening the overhead bins as items do tend to shift during flight. You may now use your portable electronic devices if they are within reach. If you're continuing on to another airline's destination, please check the monitors in the terminal or ask a Airlines gate agent for your flight and gate number information. Check luggage may be claimed for
so much stuff to turn off when you land here. Alright. I think we got it all. Break.
Not be available until the end of the deplaning process, and this will allow the ground
DFW traffic American 415 is clear of runway 17 left taxi in the Echo Sierra route with terminals. Alright. And we are here. Give her a little bit of power. The hill's not quite as pronounced here. This is one taxiway as well where you really notice it. In the real world, there's an absolutely huge hill. You have to go up a big hill as you get over this taxiway to go over this bridge, and then when you get to the other side, you kind of go down again a little bit. But yeah, DFW is very much a not flat airport. Like, look at this. Like, we're kind of in line with this roadway, and it should actually be a tunnel underneath this taxiway. So we have to go up over this bridge. But that's one thing I find. Like, flight sim, very few places in flight sim do they really properly simulate hills at airports. Everyone thinks that airports are really flat places. They really are not. A lot of these airports have some big hills, especially like here, like DFW. Like, it's a long way from that other runway. They had a couple of roadways they had to go over when they built that other runway, so they had to build a taxiway to get you over the roadways. There's a little bit of kind of an odd dip here. Again, I think this comes down to where the airport polygon is. A long way to the gate here in DFW. So I couldn't find anything about single engine taxi here. Most other places, it usually comes down to it's a hydraulic issue. Need to make sure that the hydraulic system on number 1 is still keeping pressure running.
Traffic American 200 departing 178.
So since we have the electric pump is just on all the time anyways here, we should be able to shut down engine 2 without too much issue. So once we get around the next 2 corners, we start going straight up Kilo. Oh, look, this guy's taxiing the Echo Sierra route too. This guy knows what he's doing here. The trouble is with a 737, I do feel like it is a bit of a whim taxiing single engine. I like to taxi on single engine when I can because I think it does save quite a bit of fuel, but yeah, a lot of airplanes, they are a bit wimpy. You end up having to rev up the operating engine quite a lot to the point where you might be causing dangerous jet blast to aircraft and vehicles behind you. Should be a couple of buildings down here. There's a couple. Well, we made it, and that's the important thing. We made it. We didn't kill anybody. Our failure was a little bit of a, a cop-out. You're absolutely right, Travis. Like, what a cop-out of a failure that was. So somebody's departing 17 right, they said. Did they already take off, or are they rolling now? Are we going to see them take off over our head here in a minute? I don't see anybody. One thing that is missing here is the boards. Yeah, the boards are missing. And that's super important. Right here off the end of the runway, there's a giant set of white and red striped boards so that anybody who's taking off on 17 right, looking down the runway, they can't see me taxiing here. Because the whole point of this taxiway, this end-around taxiway that they built here, is that you can land on 17 left and you can go around runway 17 right without ever stopping the departures. There's, I think it's 1,000 feet here between the end of the pavement here and the taxiway. And the whole point is that any aircraft departing on this runway will be airborne and will be well over this taxiway by the time they reach it. So there is a board here. These solid black lines here are white and red striped boards, so that if you're standing there at the threshold, or sitting at the threshold looking down the runway, you don't see aircraft taxiing on this taxiway, because otherwise you may not take off. You may say, hey, somebody's crossing my runway. They're not crossing your runway. They're all the way down here on the next taxiway. So yeah, that's one thing that's actually missing here for this detailed airport, is those boards should be there. But that is the future. And now, actually, it's not even... Oh, it is on here now. This is new. The end around on the north side. They only just finished this and opened this up in the last month or so. So they now have end around, the same exact pattern, end around taxiways at the north end. So you can be departing on 36 left, and someone who's landed on 36 right or even 36 center can go around without ever stopping the departures on 36 left. So it increases safety, reduces delays. More and more airports are starting to add those end-around taxiways wherever there's space for them. Atlanta has an end-around taxiway. They have taxiway Victor. Chicago technically doesn't have end-around taxiways, but they kind of treat the taxiways they have like end-around taxiways. What they do is they basically just say everyone on this runway on 27 center is holding short of Echo Echo, which is like the third last taxiway. So they basically say the runway ends at that point, and then anybody can cross down at the far end at Zulu. That is their end taxiway, end-around taxiway. As long as the arriving flights have confirmed their land to hold short. I'm trying to think where else are they building end-around taxiways. It's not always possible. There's so many airports where the real estate doesn't exist to actually create them. But Denver has a couple of runways where there's taxiways that you can cross the other runway without actually crossing it, because they're so far. The runway ends 1,000 or 1,500 feet before the taxiway. So Denver's another one. Anywhere where they're building bigger airports, especially building them from scratch nowadays, end-around taxiways are all the rage, because it reduces the risk it eliminates the risk pretty much altogether. You can't hit an airplane, you can't incur a runway if you never even cross the runway. So you can't have a runway incursion if you never even cross the runway. So these are slowly becoming more and more popular. The trouble is, most existing airports, there's just not the real estate. You need another 1,500, 2,000 feet of real estate past the end of your runway to be able to design an end-around taxiway, unless you're going to shorten your runways a lot, which most airports can't afford to do. They can't afford to lose that much, 1,500 feet off the end of the runway. It's a lot. So most existing airports that are kind of already all built up and surrounded by built-up areas are probably never going to get end-around taxiways. Atlanta, they kind of made it work because they kind of put it at the bottom of a hill. So there's not 1,000 feet away, but it goes way down a hill to go around the end. So you're way below the level of the arriving traffic on that other runway. A little power to get up the hill here. All right, so let's go ahead and start that APU before we go and get to the gate. See what happens when we start this APU here. Nope. Delta was there a second ago and he just logged off. Low oil pressure. Yep. Oh, it's actually starting. It started. So it's not a full failure of the APU. Maybe the generator or the bleed systems failed on the APU. Curious to see. We'll let it run its start cycle and see what happens. And we'll talk to maintenance afterwards. See if I can't figure out what's going on. Oh, the APU generator came on. So what is failed with the APU then? Maybe it's just the bleed air? United? The APU generator seems to work. APU oil pressure, low oil pressure lights out. We're not getting a fault. I wonder what's failed in the APU. Maybe it's the bleed. Maybe it's the bleed valves stuck or something. We'll have to look at it when we get to the gate. Obviously did not make much of an impact on our operation here. Weird. Well, regardless, that was a fun flight. I'm a little disappointed nothing exciting happened, though. I'm more than a little disappointed. Next time I may just ask for requests, and we'll just fail something on request, because that was more than a little disappointing. All right. Lots of airplanes parked over here at the various terminals. Oh, there's an American flight over there. Lots of people logging in to fly. I'm going to be logging out soon. Never to get any more ATC, unfortunately. Too bad. Alright, here we go. Spot 23, I believe it was. The last spot here. Feels like it's not wide enough, but my engine should just be within that line. Engine's within the line. There's just enough room for the wingspan, and this is it. Like this airplane, the 737, the 320 are the design airplanes for this taxiway. If you got a heavy aircraft, you would take the middle lane, of course. My guess is the bleed has failed on the APU then. So we won't be able to get any bleed air out of it, which means we still won't be able to do a start next time we come here. So we're going to have to wait here, I think, for this guy to leave. I actually have to wait for somebody for once. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. I don't want to be a jerk and cut him off, so I'm going to just hold here for a moment.
And DFW traffic, Delta 1048 on a 12-mile final, 17 left, DFW traffic.
All right. curious. Hi. We're going to wait here for a long time, or we're just going to reassign ourselves another gate. What do you guys think? Should we wait patiently for this guy to leave? It looks like these 3 lanes all merge into one down here in the middle. And that's our gate right there, Alpha 39.
Free Max in the Alpha Charlie alley you up.
And is that the American 7-3 just pushed off the Bravo terminal?
Yeah, just pushed off Charlie 2 here. Are you waiting for one of the Charlie gates?
Yeah, we're actually the last gate on the right there, so on our right, your left, so whenever you're able to get going.
Alright, Roger, I'll be out of your way in just a second.
Thank you so much. What a friendly network we all live on. Mostly. You can see we're waiting. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened until the PAT turns off the fasten seatbelt sign at the gate. Thank you very much for your patience. I mean, we can just switch to another gate. It really doesn't matter, but what can I say? It's like actually having to wait for another airplane. It's almost a little bit. Hey man, this is what really happens. This is real life right here. Sometimes these things happen.
So traffic American 2817, taxi runway 17 right for departure, DFW.
Just enough room to get by here.
Yeah, DFW traffic, Delta 1048, MD88, 5 mile final, 7 left. DFW traffic.
Just getting one screenshot as this goes by. Maybe it'll be on my next spool. Next time I start. Next time I start a stream, it'll be on my screenshots. Big screenshot. Ah, I missed it. Ah, it took me too late. Oh, too bad.
Nice looking Mac.
It's actually just the 700. And then there's the cars that just driving over and down. Something's wrong with the roadway there. It's got to be fixed. Because it looks a little hilarious. Alright. So marshalers in sight, taxi lights off, and the APU is up and running apparently. All the gates at this last terminal here are also a little bit off. Definitely going to need Pushback Express to push back off this one. It's going to be a bit of a complicated push when we leave this on the next flight. See, like I said, it's going to be nice to have a marshaller. Alright. Generators are off. Go ahead and kill the power. Seatbelts. Fuel pumps. Probes. Lights. And shutdown checklist. Fuel pumps are off. Probe heat is off. Hydraulic panel is let's see here. Hydraulic panel is set. Flaps are up. Parking brake is set. Engine start levers are cut off and weather radar is off. The shutdown checklist is complete. So the one thing I notice as I'm sitting here is that it does not sound like I'm getting any any air. So it sounds like it is a GP or an APU bleed failure, which actually is a little more interesting than just failing the APU itself. Because if I hadn't seen that, it would have taken me a little while to figure out what the heck is going on here, why it's not starting, why we're not getting any airflow. So yeah, it would have been something a little more interesting, I guess, to figure out. Let's just go ahead and, oops, not that one. What am I trying to do here? Menu, FS Actions, Doors. Let's open that door. And let's also go ground services, chocks on. Request the ground power and the air conditioning unit. So it looks like it was the bleed system that failed. So we'll talk to maintenance. They'll say, hey, test it. Flick that switch a few times. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't work. Okay, we got to go and fix it. Let's go to aircraft failures. So we did get a failure. Unfortunately, it was nothing very exciting, but it was APU air. So yeah, so we lost the bleed air out of the APU for whatever reason. The valve is stuck shut, won't move or whatever. Something's wrong with the APU bleed air. So regardless, the APU is still useful for power, but it's not useful for air. So that's going to make a very interesting flight next time around. So next time around, we're going to... Oops, wrong way. That way. Almost forgot to put ground power on. So next time we get in the airplane, we're actually going to do that. We're going to carry on with this failure. We're not going to clear this failure. We're going to go and do an entire turn with the APU bleed air MEL, and that's going to be a little bit of a challenge because it's going to require ground air at all the places we go. So it's going to be a little bit interesting, but I think it's going to be a bit fun. So, anyways, for now, I think that's going to be it for me today. We did make it. We did finish our schedule. So as you can see, the next thing we've got is 2 more flights going to, or 4 more flights. 2 more turns, going to Burbank and back to Dallas, and then St. Louis and back to Dallas. And then we're done with season 7 of A Pilot's Life. We're done with version 1 at that point. We are going to switch to version 2, and I'm going to restart my career in version 2. So stick with me for that, guys. It's going to be tons of fun, but in the meantime, I hope you guys had fun. Sorry that the failure was a little bit disappointing. I'm a little disappointed too. I was hoping we'd have something a little more intriguing than that, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. It's not,
2017 lining up runway 17
not what we had planned on, but it is what it is. So we deal with whatever we encounter when we're flying the airplane. But anyways, in the meantime, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and I hope you'll join me for the next one whenever I get a chance to get it in there. I haven't even thought about the schedule. Hopefully sometime next week. But have yourself a great rest of the day, and we'll see you guys all real soon.